1 minute to the deadline. Seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Deadline.
It is summertime in Chicago, so the cicadas are everywhere. I hear that people are traveling from around the globe to hear these stupid bugs make these noises that I've been hearing for a couple weeks now. But that is not why you're here. You are here for the granddaddy of them all, the WDC for Diplomacy's Championship this year, 2024 in Milan. You also didn't come to hear me talk about this game a lot. You came to see these fine folks, winners of many tournaments, people you see on League Night and our other Game Day Live broadcasts. Michalis Camaridis and I spent long hours last weekend doing DixieCon, and we are back for more. Greetings, Michalis.
Greetings again, Kevin.
We've got another DipCon winner in the room here, Adam Silverman. Welcome, Adam.
Great to be here.
And Ben kicks my butt in Windy City Weasels games, even though he's not a local weasel. He's still a weasel. So call him a weasel all night long. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be here.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. We are a little late to a live broadcast. Obviously, being in Milan, it's well into the midnight hours here in America, although Michalis is overseas and in the late hours. So no excuse for not running late on this one. But the WDC is something we plan for. People around the globe, we start talking about this a year in advance. We are ready for this big one. People make summer travel plans about it. And that's what we've got here today. We've got a few DBN crew who we're going to see some pictures and media and some sandboxing. And we will thank them as we go through this broadcast. But Adam, from a perspective of when you're getting all excited to go to one, it makes these memories that you think back on. What's your favorite WDC that you attended?
There's such a special feeling to WDCs. I love going to tournaments, any tournament, but there's something special about WDC. There's just this feeling that you're there, you're competing for the worlds. There's so many great people show up. You get to meet friends from around the world, and I've made friends from all over the place, Australia, Europe, and whatnot at these events that I only see every couple of years. I haven't had the pleasure of being able to travel internationally for one of these myself, but have met many in North America, and it's such a pleasure. If I had to pick, I guess I would have to go back to the one in Chicago in 2016 and throw you a little bit of love, Kevin. And that's not to say I haven't had a great time at all of them, but that one was really special. The top board in that game, in that tournament that was immortalized by Chris Martin's series of videos, was just the most intense game of diplomacy I've ever played in my life. I look back at it sometimes in horror, but it was just such an incredible experience. And so I probably have to pick that one, but so many good memories.
I won't deny that we threw a good party for that one. Now that was the weekend of Brexit.
Yes, that's right.
Many Brits in the room at that time, and as the results were coming in, they were all hands in head, just wondering what was going on with the world. But so two things on that. So we'll transition to the Brit in the room here, because the next year was in Oxford, and Michalis came out of online hiding to attend, I think, first face-to-face. Is that right?
It was, and this was also the pre-virtual era, because obviously it was before COVID. So I played nothing other than extended deadline. I think I'd played one face-to-face from a WebDip meetup, and that was it. I'd never not played any face-to-face diplomacy whatsoever before. And myself and a few other hobby luminaries such as Marcus Zylstra and Tanya Deal all decided to go to our first tournaments as web dippers and rocked up together. And we went there, and yeah, it was a brilliant occasion. Dan Lester, who's recently been on DBN, was the host of that tournament on the Oxford University campus. Somehow he managed to host a tournament in the British summer, and we actually had a summer, so it was actually bright sunshine every day instead of rain, which I don't know how Dan managed to make that one happen, but he did. And yeah, it was really, really fun. I met a lot of people who I now know are really good diplomacy players, but to me at the time, I'm like, this is just another name. This is like, nice to meet you, really nice guy. Never met you before, no idea. I topped a board. I had no idea that I'd beaten some pretty good players to top that board. I was just like, yay, I've done something good in my first tournament. And Tanya, of course, came third overall. So Team WebDip started that day, and Team WebDip's been doing pretty well on the tournament scene ever since.
Doug Moore won his. Was that his third? No, he's only won two. I think Goffey has won three, but Doug won his second, and then went on to win DipCon at Carnage a few months later, which is the tournament I met Tanya at. So it was nice to get to know everyone. And that was going to be maybe my question. And Ben, same way. Brandon talks about this story all the time. His first face-to-face, like real tournament was WDC in Chicago in 2016. Ben, is it an experience going to a WDC knowing that there are going to be bigger names, or is it kind of the same story with McCall? Like, I don't know who you are. I'll get to know you.
Yeah, well, everything's bigger at WDC, right? You go to a tournament to meet people you haven't met, to play with people who you like, but you don't get to see that often, to hang out, to socialize. And all of that just happens more because you have more of the top players. You have more of your friends that happen to show up just because it's bigger. Probably there's a little more of a slant towards diplomacy rather than socializing, because there tends to be 4 rounds, which at the 2022 in Carnage, I remember playing well into the night when I wanted to be hanging out with people. I didn't have the greatest position, but it is an intense environment and a really great sort of pinnacle of the year.
Yeah, and so 2018, I don't. It's funny because you mentioned, and I was there as well. I don't remember chatting, but we must have met.
2018, I had no idea what I was doing. I just picked up diplomacy. I did not really fully. I understood how to play, but I didn't understand like norms and stuff. So I was trying to be as incognito as possible. I don't really remember specific people, but I just remember that everyone was so welcoming, and they probably just wanted my dots. But it was a great introduction to that sort of large tournament.
We still want your dots, so we're still pretty welcome.
True. No, I know you better now, Kevin, though.
Yeah. Hope so. All right. So then clearly you know me better. A lot of you guys know me better. Hopefully I will make a good impression on some new viewers here tonight. For those who are making their travel plans for next year's WDC, which will be hosted by. Take your cue, Adam.
Yes, very excited. WDC in 2025 will be in San Francisco, California, coming back to the United States for the first time since Carnage, I guess, a couple years ago. Really, really excited. This will be our first time hosting World DipCon, but we are no strangers to hosting diplomacy tournaments in the Bay Area of California. We've hosted DipCon, North American DipCon twice. We've been running the whipping tournament for actually over 20 years now. And we're just super stoked to have the honor and privilege of being able to host everyone next year. It's going to be in San Francisco proper. So we will be in the city itself, near Union Square, beautiful area. Lots of great restaurants and access to really anything in San Francisco. It should just be a really great tournament. What makes the tournament great, though, above everything else, is the people who come. And so I'm really hoping we'll be seeing folks from all over the world there, as we would expect from a World DipCon, and people can just play some great diplomacy and have a good time. Plus, enjoy the area. California is really beautiful. So for people coming from out of town, either elsewhere in North America or who are making a trip to California, maybe from Europe or Australia or elsewhere, can really, hopefully spend some time around the tournament to see some of the beautiful sights in the Bay Area or even beyond in California. We're definitely going to organize some social trips, to the Redwoods and maybe wine tasting and things like that. That'll be right around the tournament. But obviously the main event will be 4 games of diplomacy and, really the intense competition that everyone would expect from a World DipCon.
I cannot wait. 2010 DipCon was my first travel DipCon. I went to 2008. Dixie was my first travel tournament, but Dixie's mostly on site. Whereas 2010, I was able to go out, walk the Golden Gate Bridge for a little bit, and walk along the piers. It was a super fun, and can't wait to do it again 15 years later. So.
And a thank you to John Jameson for his kind comments around our organization. It's always great to have John come down and support us.
Yeah.
And as a European who made the flyover trip to San Francisco last year, I can only say it's a brilliant experience, and anyone who's on the fence, definitely give it a go. It's a really nice city and a really fun atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there as well.
Yeah. One more comment about 2017 is, if any of you have not seen Dan Lester on our streams or have not been on a board with him, Dan can negotiate with Mother Nature to get 3 sunny days, because Dan is just that good at this game.
I don't know about in San Francisco, but I make no promises about that. But
yeah. Well, you're not as good as Dan. Sorry, All right. On that note, I think I'm gonna go in hiding for a few minutes. But so here's what we got for you today. We've got 3 preliminary rounds that were at the tournament. We are gonna show just a single game for what the preliminary coverage was like. The scoring system is not CDiplo, but it was a 7-year final deadline for all the preliminary rounds. Board topping was the primary goal for the scoring system, and to widen the margin got you some extra points. We because the system is not in our Dipcast, we won't have scores up on the screen for it, but as we show you this one preliminary game to give you a taste of it, this is what a lot of the games got to once you got your board topping. And we see a little bit of this with the Carnage system. You play for your position and you go from there. I think we'll see a little bit in this first game, and then we're going to get to some top board coverage, and I am super excited. This top board coverage is going to be similar, very similar to a virtual top board coverage that we've been able to do with on-scene interviews and camera shots and the highlights and low lights for those on the board. So very excited here. Collis, are you able to pull up the screen? Let me.
We'll find out now on how well the tutoring me on how to do this has gone. Let's find out.
There, so I'm going to call this one. Oh yeah, you got it. Perfect. There we go.
Hey.
All right, gents, enjoy. We'll see you in a little bit.
Wow, what a board.
And what a board this is. Oh my goodness. Wow.
As I step into the hosting duty and refrain from all analysis and try and keep my mouth
this
shut.
This isn't the top board. This is just the board.
This is just a round 1 board. So Adam, why don't you take us through the players?
Wow. Okay. Austria, we have Robert Schuppe, a fantastic player and DBN personality from Dresden, Germany. In England, a world champion from 2016, actually the board I mentioned earlier, Chris Brand from Vancouver. France is Marco Pedraglio. I'm not familiar with Marco. Are either of you?
No.
No, maybe a local player in Milan. In Germany is Rene van Rugen. He's a Dutch player, I believe, and I've definitely seen the name and know that he's a very high-quality European player. Do either of you know anything more about Rene?
Again, no. But as with you, I've definitely seen the name around before.
Yeah. Italy, world champion Dan Lester from London. Russia, world champion Nicolas Auguet from Montreal. And Turkey, world champion, multiple-time world champion Andrew Goff from Melbourne, Australia. This is a doozy of a board.
this may be why this one was the one that was picked. So here we go into spring of '01. Adam, why don't we have you doing spring? Ben, you can do autumn. And if either of you see anything particularly interesting, feel free to jump in on the others. Go.
Sure. And just a reminder, this is a 1907 game, so we might see some more aggressive play than we might, otherwise, or at least in the mid game, people really making a shot to change board dynamics more quickly than they might otherwise. I'm very curious, for those who have watched DBN, Nicolas Sahuguet tends to be a very patient, slow player, and I'm curious to see how he handles 1907 boards. Okay, so we have, let's see, we have pretty normal stuff going on. Nothing happening in the English Channel, though the Liverpool hold by Chris Brand is kind of interesting. That could have been a misorder or could have been intentional. I suspect that might be a mistake. I know that they were also playing on a drop dead central clock, which may lead to a lot of order mistakes, at least in the past. That type of system has not been used in a while, I know, in the North American hobby, but I guess was selected to use to keep the games moving along at this particular tournament. But it really leads towards a lot of mistakes, even by great players like Chris. Again, I don't know about that Liverpool order specifically, but I think as we go through this game, we may see more misorders, and many of them may be due to the time pressure. We also see the unusual move of Paris to Brest. That's quite interesting. Could be a intention to convoy over the mid-Atlantic in the fall to put both armies into Iberia. We also have a Rome hold. Again, very unusual. Not really sure about that, but no action in Trieste. Bounce in the Black Sea, the Smyrna to Syria move, and a bounce in Galicia. So yeah, some unusual things, but again, hard to say whether that's due to time pressure or some intentional moves. Dan Lester has been definitely known to do some creative things, so the Rome hold wouldn't surprise me if it was intentional by Dan.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out to me is, Goth is somewhat known for this move to Syria. It's meant to discourage Lepanto, but with Rome not moving, you kind of wonder, it takes out the convoy to Tunis, so wonder what was expected and how it'll play out going forward.
Okay, so in the fall, we have Russia supporting themselves into Rome. The Bulgaria army holds, and nothing goes to the Black Sea. Syria just sits there. Ankara is going to Constantinople. We do have what looks to be like an agreement between Dan Lester in Italy and Robert Schuppe in Austria for Dan to take Trieste in exchange for the move to Aegean and for going Tunis in 1901. Indeed, France does the convoy into Portugal. That is usually not a favorable move for England because it keeps the fleet in the mid-Atlantic, which allows a fleet Brest move, a fleet Brest build, and then potentially to put pressure on the Irish Sea and the English Channel. This all allows Germany to take 3 in 1901. Good job, Rene. And Russia gets their 2 centers and England gets Norway.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see whether we get a Brest build and a support in the English Channel here. The flexibility for France here is really great. Also, no one contested Germany going to Belgium. So 3 builds for Rene and lots of flexibility.
Yeah, the north to Denmark is kind of interesting, and I suspect that is really just a hold, and he just ordered there just for fun, or in case Denmark went to Sweden and Bothnia went to Baltic or something like that. But it kind of just smells like he didn't want to go and bounce Rene. I think he wants to keep his options open, which was obviously the right thing to do, given the way France is open. I'm pretty certain we're going to see a fleet Brest here and probably a fleet London from England.
So we don't see a free build Germany in 1901 very often. Ben, how would you feel about that if you were Germany or if you were one of the other powers in the West?
Personally, I don't prescribe to the idea that it being bigger is necessarily scarier. I feel like if you're working with England, then you're Germany, you're probably going to end up with Sweden or Belgium at some point anyway. So if I'm feeling like I'm in an alliance with Germany, the fact that they start with 6 doesn't scare me any more than them getting 5. It's just a question of where their allegiances lie, right?
I mean, look, this is a scoring system where you need to be topping the board, right, to get the best possible score. So if that's the case, I want to be leading my game early, and I want to be leading my game continuously, right? I don't. I need to be able to do that through 1907. Obviously, I can try to catch up later, but I'd rather not be playing catch up. I'd rather be playing I'm on top and I'm dictating the direction things move.
Guess I will be interested to see what if France does support them. Well, let's see the builds, but if France does support themselves into the channel, and then Germany goes to North Sea, having 6 and a leg up on North Sea, and maybe a shot at Sweden, we're looking pretty far in the future here. But it could be a very good start.
Well, let's have a look at those builds now then.
Oh.
So
Whoa.
England builds the fleet in Edinburgh. France does not build a second unit at all, just the army in Paris. Again, perhaps that plays into the time pressure and the although drop dead clock wouldn't apply to the builds. Other than that, it all looks pretty normal to me. Is anything else stand out to you, Adam?
No, this is pretty terrible for France. They went from being in the driver's seat to really now probably attracting the attention of both Germany and England. Though I'm frankly interested. I mean, you know, we don't have any insights into the negotiation. It's really interesting that Chris built in Edinburgh, not London, given France's move. So maybe I'm missing something in terms of the actual diplomatic situation on this board. I think everything else on the board completely checks out in terms of the 2 Russian armies and the Turkish fleet, Italian fleet.
All right. Ben, how about you take us through Spring of 02 then?
Sure. So Portugal's convoying back to Brest. It's kind of made the journey west, and now it's coming back east. We've got Belgium going to Ruhr, Munich trying to go to Silesia but getting bounced, while Germany also goes into the Baltic Sea. England is making a move to Norway, but getting blocked by the south bounce from Nicola in Russia. England does get up into Barents, though, so they should be able to get to Norway if they would like to in the fall. In the east, Austria takes Bulgaria without any help from Russia, but they use the Italian tap on Constantinople to do that. Italy also backs out of Trieste, signaling continued cooperation with Austria.
These are incredibly sensible moves by Chris in England, right? If you have the opportunity where you've got one French fleet against you, so you don't need to worry about them. So you have the opportunity to get a corner by, you know, at least getting St. Petersburg, Sweden knocked down. That makes a lot of sense. And then you can have 1903, 1904, make some choices about which direction you would go. So I really like Chris's decision here. It's interesting that the bounce in Silesia and maybe Renee not expecting that to bounce based on the Berlin to Munich move is really interesting. So that fascinates me, and I wonder how the negotiations led to that happening. Same thing for Nicola, perhaps, with Moscow just following into Warsaw instead of going to Ukraine or Livonia is just very, very interesting to me.
It does occur to me now that Renee could have made that move happen by supporting Berlin to Silesia if he'd have wanted to. So maybe this is arranged.
Yeah, but why do it with the conga line, right? If you're going to do it that way, right? Unless you really just don't want to move anything. But again, in a short game, you know, momentum is so important. So very interesting, and I'm sure there's more to it because Nicola and Renee are both extremely, extremely strong players. So I think they probably both had something in mind, and it may have simply been they didn't expect it to bounce.
All right, and as we go into fall, Adam, what do you see?
Yeah, and you see now we've got the Moscow to Livonia move. Really interesting that Nicola drops into the Black Sea, but I think that probably makes a lot of sense for him to do that. There's no reason not to do that. And if there's going to be a takeout of Andrew Goff in Turkey, I'm sure he wants his piece. But then again, is there going to be such a takeout? Because Dan Lester is now out of the Eastern Med, back into the Ionian, back into Tunis. So that's quite fascinating. And probably surprising to Robert Schuppe, who moved up to Bohemia. I would only assume expecting to work with the Italians who were in Tiroli at the time. So that's really fascinating. Could this be a change where we're going to have an IT against Robert or something like that? I don't know. The French moves are amusing, yet entirely ineffective. And yeah, another bounce in Silesia. So I don't know what to say about that.
It's hard to know if they're effective because I don't think we have any idea what Marco's trying to accomplish. So they're keeping very well hidden here, and we'll see. I'm very interested to see what the long-term strategy is. Also notable is that Chris does not choose to put the army into Norway. Keeps it there maybe for defensive purposes.
And actually, this is just smart play by Chris, right? You still have that French fleet sitting in Mal. There's no Italian units that are there at this point in time, so that fleet could easily crawl up to Irish Sea right now or to English Channel, and you've got nothing. You leave nothing back in England. Then you have a free walk-in for the French into Liverpool. So you keep that army there. Until you have the build coming, right? If you had a build coming, it's a different story, but this is the right thing to do here. The other thing, I guess, that I didn't point out that's really interesting is the Denmark hold move, right? And again, I wonder if this is just time pressure, not getting the orders written, because there's no reason why Denmark doesn't support Baltic Sea to Sweden here. Why would you not want to take Sweden right here if you're in Germany, right? So I can only assume that was just a mistake probably based on time.
And yet, if the Silesia bounce is happening by coordination, maybe Sweden was deliberate.
Then what are you doing if you're for Germany? What are you doing?
If you're on Russia's side, then maybe you want to hit North Sea or go to Helgoland, right? So a lot of people playing their cards close to their chest here, I think.
How would you feel about Italy's moves if you were Austria here, Adam?
Oh, I don't like them at all. Totally sketch. And again, I'm thinking that Turkey and Italy maybe patch things up, but I've got to be really careful in my negotiations with Italy here because I don't want to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? On the bright side, Apulia went to Rome, not to Venice, so it's less threatening, at least right away for me, but they're going to be building. I'm going to be watching what they're building. Hopefully it's Fleet Naples, of course. And maybe they're thinking send some units towards France, but again, the moves don't necessarily allow that. But with what France is doing, maybe I position them that way, and I have to deal with Turkey with Russian help, and I don't have Italy on side. But I don't want to be fighting Italy here if I'm Austria. I really don't want to be doing that.
All right. Well, looking at the winter of 1902, Austria puts down another army. Turkey removes the army in Syria, perhaps not suggesting that they've patched things up with Italy. And France puts down a fourth army in Marseille. Ben, how do you feel about that?
Well, if I'm England, I feel fine about it. If I am Germany or Italy, I'm wondering which, if these armies are going to Burgundy and Picardy, or if they're going to Piedmont. I don't know that it's entirely discernible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably not the right build for Marco. I mean, a four-army France at this stage of the game, those armies are going to get bottlenecked very quickly, and I think it just becomes cumbersome and is more than you need. And I think what you do need is that second fleet, whether that's because the Italians are coming, because I think they probably are. You don't really have to worry about the English just yet, but in the long run, you probably do. So I think it's going to hurt him not to have that extra fleet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I certainly would have built the fleet, but it's just I'm trying to. This is obviously somebody who's plays differently than me, so I'm kind of fascinated by it rather than trying to get in their head. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you go to Piedmont and try to go up through Tyrolia to attack Germany here, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. If that was me, I think I'd be looking at Picardy, Burgundy, and Piedmont and trying to move to all of them as an attacker on Germany. But yeah, we shall see. Ben, how about you take us through spring?
Sure. So again, Burgundy is bounced, and we've got the armies moved around in ways that they don't need to move around again. I mean, France can be played very patiently, and this is certainly what's happening here. Again, Germany does the daisy train move to Silesia, but it works this time because Russia goes back to Ukraine while interesting. I don't know what they thought was going to happen with the Black Sea. It looks like they tried to convoy something, maybe Romania to Bulgaria, but it just goes on its own. Constantinople doesn't support it. It goes back to Ankara, maybe anticipating a convoy. Were
we hacked by the?
Talking about Russia, but we're a little before. We're a little pre-Soviet. All right, it's Romania to Constantinople. Interesting. So it seems like Goff kind of got the idea that maybe Russia would convoy towards him and guessed Ankara. Wasn't correct, but Russia got their moves twisted. Interesting turn of events. Germany does support themselves to Sweden this time and gets a retreat to Bothnia. Italy is going back to Tyrolia. I had to check for a second to make sure that this wasn't spring of last year. Italy's moving Trieste to Tyrolia again while going back towards Turkey, but not getting in. That's and Bohemia's Austria actually as a whole is doing very little. Oh, except that's Porto Aegean.
Well, I mean, he's not the only one doing little, but so he was trying to convoy Romania to Khan, but he actually ordered Romania to Bull, is what I'm seeing here. Which, again, I just I have to just attribute this to the time, right? Nicola knows exactly how to order his units. We all know that. So I think there was probably some kind of move change. What was his actual intention?
Oh, actually, Bulgaria does support Romania to Khan. That's what that was.
Right. So maybe his intention was to convoy and he miswrote, or maybe his intention was to support himself to Bulgaria. It's really, though that would be more surprising, but it's possible, right? So, really hard to say what's actually happening. The good news for Nikolai is in negotiations, he has plausible deniability to everyone because he screwed up his orders, and he can say, obviously I screwed up my orders because I accomplished nothing. So of course this was just a mistake, and he can tell Austria one thing, what he intended. He can tell Goffi something else for what he intended, and it's all good for both, right? So the diplomacy is perfectly fine. I am fascinated by Dan, going in one direction and back in the other direction. It's very interesting,
I mean, the question is, did he
be
screw up his orders, or could this be a deliberate ploy?
Yeah, of course, that's certainly possible. I mean, sure, but you would think that if he had a free walk into ability to take one of those centers and probably hold it, like. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be. It's a spring term. Maybe he's keeping his options open for what to do in the fall. Totally plausible. Okay, it looks like McCallus is having a little bit of connection issues. What do you, Ben? What do you think about Dan's decision to kind of pull back, and now it looks like he's attacking Goffi again, and he's back up in Tyrolia? Do you think that's like a negotiation stroke that we should be complimenting Robert for, or do you think Dan made a mistake? Or
the question is what Nicola is doing, right? Because it's going to be difficult for Austria and Austria and Italy to break through there if there's no help from Russia. I wonder if all three of them can't quite get on the same page, and if they can't get on the same page, who that's benefiting the most.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then the other thing that I'm really thinking about is, if I'm one of England or Germany, what am I making of, France's just frankly bizarre moves? And maybe there's something in the negotiation that's giving me some indication that, hey, France is just going to sit here at 5 centers and not do anything in this game. And maybe I'm just like, well, okay, I'm going to just try to get my dots elsewhere and let them do that. Or maybe something else is going on. But I don't know how I'm handling that, honestly.
Yeah, without the army into Norway, England's going to have a hard time taking St. Petersburg until Germany makes progress, which is looking pretty good for Germany as they get further out in front. All right, good. We hit the next one. I think it was your turn, right, Adam?
Sure. So this is really interesting because England convoys into Belgium this turn and is bounced in a one-on-one. I guess it's hard to imagine that was coordinated. It seems more like Chris was, taking a guess between Holland and Belgium, so that is very interesting. The other thing that's really interesting here is that Rene opts to attack Bohemia. That's an interesting choice. Yeah.
And it seems like maybe Austria intentionally goes to Galicia to cut off the retreat.
They do have a rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd be cutting off their own retreat, though.
Oh,
right?
Sorry, that's their retreat. I'm sorry, the Axis. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure exactly. Yeah, well, they'll get a rebuild.
And the move to Galicia is really interesting, too, in light of the fact that I guess they're expecting Romania to be empty. I guess maybe they're protecting if they're working with the Russians, which it looks like they are. Maybe Galicia is to prevent Germany from moving there, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds right.
If this is a coordinated AIR, or some sort of attempt at coordinating an AIR, why is Livonia holding?
Instead of going to Prussia.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the extra support for St. Petersburg, I guess, because I guess you could drop Bothnia to Baltic in this situation and use Livonia for support, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. At some point soon, he's going to need that extra support, right? I'm actually surprised that he didn't bother to support St. Petersburg from Livonia right now, because Bothnia could have been cut by Sweden, right? And Sweden actually was not under threat. Denmark supports Sweden. In principle, if England is working with Germany, shouldn't need the support. I guess England and Germany maybe aren't working together if the Belgium thing was not arranged, which is, I think, a fair assumption. And then, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that France has finally moved a unit. They have convoyed an army to North Africa. What that army is going to do in North Africa, I'm not quite sure, but it is there. So congratulations, Marco. You are now in North Africa.
It's going to make John Jameson happy. That's what that
John
army in
is
North
really
Africa is
happy.
going to do.
Yeah, I'll be curious if that indicates any kind of direction from John's favorite move. If there will be any kind of direction from that fleet coming up next, or if it's just going to convoy back somewhere else.
All right, so going into the builds phase here, Kevin has taken over the casting as my internet was being a little wonky, but Fleet Kiel is the standout, Army Vienna after the rebuild, and St. Petersburg comes off the map. So Fleet Kiel, what does that say to you?
Not great for England, I would think. But with St. Petersburg coming off, maybe Russia and England have made some kind of deal. So very curious to see how that goes forward.
Yeah, you have to imagine that that's the case. And actually that means, frankly, St. Petersburg might remain Russian right now, because Chris may decide it's better to have Russia as an ally and be able to deal with the German than to just get that dot and have two enemies. So that will be really interesting. And again, these short games tend to be very dynamic. So I would not be surprised to see something like Norway to Skag, Barents to Norway, or something along those lines happen right now.
Yeah, if they're working together, I'd expect one of them to take Sweden. It's right there for them.
Oh, maybe they go for Sweden. Yeah, that's possible too.
All right.
Oh,
yeah,
you're right.
Ben.
I was right. All right. Okay. And France is moving now. This is great. France is moving. Dan Lester is not happy about it. Dan is saying to himself, this guy's been circling his army, circling the wagons for 4 years now, and now he attacks me, for crying out loud. What did I do to deserve this? Well, Dan, you're a world champ. You can deal with it. And he does. He's still doing just fine. Does he take Khan here? It looks like
yes.
He takes Khan here, right? So okay. So Dan's okay.
As long as he's got Russia on side in the fall.
Yeah, so we really quite clearly have an AIR here against Germany, against England, against France doing whatever they're doing. So that is quite fascinating, and it makes you wonder if the attack on Germany is not rapid, whether Germany might be able to get some success out of this. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think that these convoys into Germany from England must be an arranged bounce, effectively, because, unless he just guessed right twice, and I don't know.
I totally think he guessed right twice.
Yeah, no, you're right, because the move from Norway south. The first time I thought it might have been arranged, but the confusing thing for me is if England did it without telling Germany last turn, why is Germany going to Baltic instead of Helgoland now? I'm not quite.
You're right in a sense, but on the other hand, he doesn't need to cover Helgoland necessarily because he's worried that England is going to go there. Because from this position, England could go there, but that's not like the likely move. The likely move is either to do the attack on Sweden with Russian support, or do exactly what he does here and go to Skagerrak, right? So you're not so worried about Helgoland, but you are worried about Germany dropping Bothnia into Baltic in the event that the two of them are turning around and working together. So I think
good point.
Yeah, so I think the move makes sense. I don't know whether you support yourself there versus doing something else with Denmark, but I think this all makes sense. Munich going to Ruhr with Holland holding protects you from the right convoy this turn, because you can cut North Sea from Denmark and retake Belgium. So there's a whole lot of things you can do here. I actually love this set of orders from Rene. I love that he's sitting in Belgium, in Bohemia. I think that's a brilliant place to be right now. So I am just very impressed with how Rene is playing this game, actually.
So Ben, you brought up a good point about Italy's all right if they still have Russia on side. And I look at this as Austria and Russia. And so Constantinople could be taken by the two of them if they go for it. Trieste could be taken by Austria if they go for it. How would you think about that, Ben? Would you consider going for it if you're Austria here, bearing in mind this is a 1907 game?
Well, Austria is in a difficult position here. They have been in a difficult position where the alliance structures haven't been clear. And sometimes when you're Austria, you feel surrounded and like you're in the eye of a hurricane or something, right? Everything's swirling around you and you're okay for the moment, but you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out. I do think if they have the buy-in from their neighbors, that making a move on Italy would be a way to gain some security. But you really need to make sure you trust Russia here, especially. And they have looked like they trusted them going, so yeah, if I had buy-in from Russia, I do think it would be a good time to make a move.
I think if Austria turns on Italy here, they are going to completely lose Russian support right immediately. I think Russia has no incentive whatsoever to continue working with the Austrians unless it's a three-way alliance. It does nothing because Russia gets nothing out of it at that point. So Russia goes straight to Italy and says, great, let's crush Austria, and I'm going to get the lion's share of it. So I think that Robert is in a very difficult position. I think Robert probably has to be thinking to himself, my best result in this game may not be to top the board. It may be to help one of my allies topping the board and me having a middling result. But for a first round game, I'm better off with sort of a middling result than getting crushed in between two big powers. So I'm thinking, how do I keep this balance so I'm not an attractive target for either of them, even if that means I'm going to kind of sit at 5 or 6 centers while they're at 7 or 8 topping.
All right, so let's see in full whether Robert does go for it.
Do we have a full? There we go.
We do.
Yeah, but that looks like that's certainly an agreed upon taking of Trieste, right? Dan can very easily counter that. So,
but Constantinople also.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Constantinople was not agreed.
Oh, that's fascinating. No, and Aegean going to Ionian with support of Eastern Med. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, that was very much not agreed upon.
And at the same time, France backs off. So instead of trying to take, well, they weren't going to get Tunis anyway. With the,
but in fairness, they had to protect Brest.
They had to. Yeah, they seem to really like putting armies there. It's very important to garrison Brest, apparently. But yeah, okay. So just to run through the rest of the moves, Italy kind of makes a move west. Gets followed up on by Austria. Turkey is not intentionally putting Russia into Khan, but so they'll have to pull one. They are supportive of this move Aegean to Ionian, though. It looks like Turkey thought they might get back into Khan. No, sorry. Ankara went to Khan, but Smyrna supported Black to Khan. So, okay, Goff's okay going down as long as he's losing this triple alliance against him. Austria, in addition to going to Trieste, goes back to Galicia, which is not what Russia expected, which is an interesting move. Berlin looks like they're trying to support Austria into Munich. Is that what that is? Which is interesting. And yes, Silesia to Munich. England is doing another convoy that doesn't go anywhere, but it does cut support in this case, which allows it to take Sweden. And Russia does try that move to Baltic, but it seemed not super likely to work in this situation. What else? What am I missing, Adam?
No, I think you nailed most of it. I'll just say I said a moment ago that if Austria attacks Italy, Russia has no longer, has a lot of reason to work with them. But here's the exception: they do it coordinated with Russia, right? And if they do it coordinated with Russia, Russia very much has the incentive. So I think Robert did this the right way if he was going to do it. Give Nicola a center and give him that center in Cannes, so that fleet is not in the Black Sea. Being something else you have to worry about. So I think this was well played here.
Of course, as Ben brought up, Austria has come back to Galicia, which doesn't look like Nicola expected that. If you're Nicola and you see that, Adam, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're thrilled with that. I think, Robert can make excuses for why he did that, and I think, it's, well, hey, you should be in Silesia, not me. I'm going to build in Vienna, and I got to kick him out of Bohemia, yada yada yada. So I think that Robert has some reasonable arguments for why they did that, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be some tension in the next negotiation phase for sure.
All right, so let's have a look at the builds for 1904. Ben, anything stand out to you?
Well, I was wondering what Goff was going to do next with only 2 units, if he sees a path to get in here. It's interesting that he doesn't pull Eastern Med. He's giving himself, he's got to have something worked out in his head that he can do other than just, hit Khan over and over again. So hopefully he's got some sort of an avenue to move forward there. Other than that, not really. I mean, England just continues to display no concern for France. It's almost like the board doesn't include France. It's just off waiting for maybe the last year or two.
So before we go into 1905, we'll play a game of Who Do You Like? So Adam, you're up first. Which country would you want to drop into on this board?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I think Nicola, probably Russia. I mean, I think Nicola just doesn't really have enemies here, right? He doesn't have the clearest path to growth, but he has the most options diplomatically. So I have to go for Nicola.
Ben?
It is an interesting situation. I think I kind of want to say England. I think that Chris has a lot of options here. He's not really locked into. He's competing with Germany here, but I think there's a lot of flexibility, and I like that. And also, we don't know what's happening with France. I think if Germany and England ever got their act together, they'd still have a lot of potential here.
I don't know. France might make their move. Maybe we're underestimating them because of some weird play, right? Let's see if they do something. I mean, they are sitting here pretty, and nobody is anywhere near them, right? So,
well, if you hadn't taken England, Ben, I definitely would have. But with that in mind, and the interests of all picking separately, I'll give a shout out to Robert. And if he can keep managing this diplomatically, I think he can pull it out. It looks like it's going to be a pretty low board top, and that can favor Austria, which has a lot of centers that they can grab right at the end. So we'll go into 1905 now, and Adam, take us away.
Sure. Wow. So France makes their move, but maybe it's not the move that we expected. They take Trieste from the Austrians. And for some reason, and I've got to give this some thought, the Germans decide to help in this aspect. And I'm struggling to necessarily see that as a strong move, but maybe it's not a bad move from Renee's perspective if they don't consider France to be a player in this game, but they do consider Austria to be one. So maybe in that sense, it's a reasonable decision to help that out. But they do, for the favor, get Russia and Silesia, which I think had to be expected. So, are you preferring to do that or preferring to cover Silesia? You don't have to cover Munich from the French now, I guess. I don't know. Elsewhere in the north, England is now in the Helgoland Bight, right? So Germany is now pretty well surrounded with enemies. So it's looking less good for the Germans. Again, I'm perplexed why the French didn't bother to move up to Burgundy here. That would have been the thing to do. What have I missed?
Goff provides a crucial hold to Ionian that allows a convoy to Naples. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Turkey seems to have joined in on the AR for the moment.
Yeah, and I guess the point of that also is that allows Khan to go out to Aegean and then basically to say like, okay, Andrew, we're going to leave you alone. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Khan. Does Gafi take it back, or does he, just kind of roll as the two-power janissary for the rest of this game and just say, I'm going to be a good soldier as long as you don't mess with any more of my dots.
He definitely gets the reward with Sevastopol not dropping to Armenia as well. So Goffey's doing his work diplomatically to keep himself in this game.
Yep.
If we go into fall of 1905, Ben, how about you take us through this one?
So France gets kicked right back out of Trieste, and they don't move out of Brest either. So they were not considering building a fleet, even if they did take it, which makes it me even more curious about what the deal was with Germany. England takes Denmark, and Germany tries to go towards Baltic, but does not get in. Russia is playing relatively, is just holding St. Petersburg as well as Romania, but they do get Ionian here in a I don't know, but maybe they retreated that unintentionally. It's kind of a forward retreat to Adriatic, so it does set up Austria with a chance to take Venice. I wouldn't be sure that that's the end of the AR. And finally, France does go to Burgundy.
So there's 2 years left in this game. So the question in my mind is, what is Nicolas looking at for? He's at 6, and Chris is about to be at 6, and Austria is at 5.
Austria's at 6 as well.
Austria's at 6 as well. So he's probably saying, okay, I need to get probably 2 more centers to top this board. What are those 2 centers? Because not everybody's going to get to 8. Maybe 7's not enough. How am I going to do that? What are my dots going to be? England can look and say, okay, I got a shot at Belgium, I got a shot at Holland, I got a shot at Kiel. What is Russia saying? And I'm not sure what the answer to that is, right? I mean, he's positioned not to lose anything, but what is he in position to get?
There's something interesting also. France could have retreated into Venice there. They could have gone up to 6 themselves and been joint top. They chose not to. Ben, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting decision. I mean, they just keep being not very aggressive here.
It's consistent with how they've been playing.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about Russia's difficulty getting dots, they are going to have a hard time getting the Italian dots given the position going forward. The fact that Italy's not being weakened may make them more likely to have to go for the Austrian dots and for there to have to be a fight there. So I don't know if France is considering all that or if they are simply avoiding conflict.
I guess the point is, if the Austrians decide to go for the Italian dots, what does that mean for Russia?
Right.
The other thing, of course, is that with a 1907 end and France is doing their best not to upset anyone, it's possible that they're playing this game. What they're hoping for is that come 1907, their neighbours go, you know what? I don't want the person who's been attacking me all game to win. France, you can have a dot. France gets a dot from there, and all of a sudden they get given 3 dots at the end and win the game diplomatically without ever picking a real enemy in this game.
Oh, it is entirely conceivable they could do something right now and start to move into a position where they can take some things. I completely agree with Carlos. That would be fascinating if that's where this game goes, and we've been sort of hoodwinked watching them this whole time.
Well, let's have a look at the builds and see if that enlightens us anywhere. Looks like we've got an army in Budapest for Austria, a rebuild after Naples was popped. Germany pulls Skagerrak off the board, and England puts down another fleet in Edinburgh. I don't think there's anything particularly surprising about that. So, Adam, let's have a look at spring of 06.
There goes the English moving into the French moving into the English Channel. Potentially enabling a convoy into England if that's something they ultimately want to do. The Germans are circling the wagons as best as they can, but they are losing Kiel and Berlin right here to the Russians and the English right now. So now the question is who else is able to make gains? Robert says, you know what, I got to take some dots because other people are taking dots, so I'm going to take Romania, and that's what he does. Andrew Goff is like, well, I'm not actually out of this game. Don't forget me. I might be sitting in the corner of Turkey, but I'm going to take Khan and I'm going to set up to maybe take something else. Love it. I love it. This is play by world champions. This is how world champions play, and how great players like Robert Chupe and Rene, this is how they play. And maybe Marco too. I don't know. Let's see what he does.
It's a very interesting situation coming down to the end. I'll be curious whether Goff goes for anything besides Constantinople here, whether he shoots for one of the Austrian centers or whether he's trying to, be friendly with them.
Why would he not? It's 1906. If he could build two here, he'll be at 5. He's in contention.
Yeah,
for this
I guess
game.
he has to. It's a very the short deadline creates a very like a dot focused mindset at this point in the game, which is really interesting. And then what is Italy do? They're just sitting there. No, suddenly no one's attacking them.
And Marco has, despite moving to channel, Germany looks like they've moved to defend against France. Marco's made it very clear that he doesn't want to take German centres, as he moves both units to Belgium instead of making a supported attack there. And he moves up to Bohemia, which somebody must have asked him to do, presumably. But who do you think, Ben, would want France in Bohemia at this stage of the game?
Dan.
Yeah, right. Just to get away from him, and they maybe to tap Vienna or something. But yeah, for Russia, it works just as well being where he was. I don't know. I don't know who else I want in there. Dan. Yeah.
100% Dan.
All right, let's have a look at the full then. And Ben, how about you see whether Dan and Marco continue anything else together?
Well, it turns out it wasn't Robert, because France walks right into Vienna. He also tries to convoy to London. Very interesting. When again would have had the option to take Belgium if he'd have wanted it, but instead there is a 3-on-3 brace between Kiel and Holland. Very interesting. Wherein Germany's unable to take Berlin back. Well, actually, they only put 1 on it. So the upshot will be Russia going up 1. And England going up 1 from Germany, and France going up 1 from Austria, while Austria stays. No, they don't. They go down Vienna and Bulgaria because, as you were saying, Adam, Goff, he doesn't even go for both. He goes for just Bulgaria, but he must know that he can take Constantinople next year. There's nothing Russian adjacent to it. The Ionian fleet is popped, which makes sense because. I think it makes sense because Russia might want that as a rebuild somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, how do you feel about that? Would you want to be rebuilding that fleet as Russia, or would you want the option of trying to get something out of Smyrna? Eastern Med or Adriatic were the only available. Actually, Tyrrhenian Sea was available, so there was potential options for Russia to try using that as an adventure unit to snag something.
I'm not convinced that I can do anything with it. The question is, so if I have a build coming? If I don't have a build coming unless I pull it, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that right with the count? Okay.
Because they're up Berlin, down.
Yeah, so I want to build in Warsaw. I want the army in Warsaw. No, I don't want the fleet. I want an army in Warsaw. Absolutely, this is the right play by Nicola. Sure.
Well, this takes us into the builds. Well, we see France deciding that even though they're attacking England, they don't need multiple fleets to do it. It's an army in Marseille again. Chris Brand does put a fleet in London this time. Germany pulls Munich and Prussia. Robert pulls the fleet in Albania. And interestingly, Andrew Goff decides that build needs to be a fleet in Ankara. Ben, there's a couple of standout builds there. How do you feel about this build phase?
Well, you'd expect Ankara to go to the Black Sea probably in the long run. That could be useful positionally, but there's only 1 year. So I'm not, I think probably Turkey's out for topping this board, regardless of what they build. Warsaw, you were right about that. And I think it's a good, I think it's a very reasonable build for England. But the question is, what can they get from it? I mean, they can get into English Channel here, and then they'll have the ability to tap Belgium. Yeah, that could end up netting them something.
Yeah, it's the right build for England. Honestly, for France, in fairness, as much as it seems silly, Fleet does absolutely nothing here because it's 1 year of gameplay. So, is an army going to do anything for them? I don't know, but it has a possibility of doing something where a fleet is completely useless for 1 year. So I think it's probably the right call here.
All right, Adam, let's go into the spring of the final year and see what happens.
Sure. Yeah, and so the English indeed kick the French out of the English Channel. They retreat to the Irish Sea, but that will be easily coverable by the English army. Meanwhile, they are just positioning down to probably try to make a play on one of the Low Countries come the fall. It is interesting that the Germans make a supported attack on Kiel. The Russians choose not to get involved in that, which is interesting because it might be in Nicola's interest to actually help the Germans retake it, so that the English are down a center here. So it will be interesting to see if in the fall that same type of play continues. Though England will be in a better position to hold it with that fleet in Denmark. Elsewhere, Dan is continuing to reposition, probably trying to take some Austrian centers. They do manage to take Greece with the help of Turkey, though Austria retakes Bulgaria. Indeed, Russia goes up to the Black Sea. Actually, terrible turn for Robert Schuppe. They do kick the French out of Vienna, but manage to lose Romania and Greece here. So not really a great outcome overall for him.
He's not in good position anymore, but he's going to have some choices about who he tries to kick out of which of his dots on the last turn, which could be decisive.
Yep.
Yeah, it's also nobody moved to Munich in spring, despite there being Berlin and Burgundy that could have done so. France is still not taking Belgium when they could have done so. Dan Lester's got the option now that he's in Greece. He could take, well, Trieste, obviously. Maybe Munich as well. Dan Lester, there's a lot of centres he could suddenly walk into out of nowhere on this final turn that could catapult him back into contention. Adam, who do you think you'd be trying to get the dots from if you're Dan?
That's a great question. I mean, it partly depends. Do I think I can actually take Trieste? I think unless if the French are going to support me into Munich, I probably will just take that. But the French have, and the French haven't really shown much of a propensity to do a whole lot. So I don't know that that's forthcoming. So honestly, it's going to depend on the diplomacy a great deal here. Do I think that anybody's going to Munich? Nobody has been making that move. So am I going to get a free walk-in? Is Russia going to cut something that would enable me to take Trieste in the event that Austria does a supported attack back there? So it's really going to be the negotiation. So since I'm not privy to that, it's really hard to say. Like tactically, the tactics are irrelevant here. It's really the negotiation.
All right, well, let's go into the following year and see what Dan does try to take. Ben, to talk us through.
Yeah. So Dan does make the play for Trieste and Greece. He does not get Trieste. He does keep Greece. Bulgaria is popped, so Turkey will be back to 4. Austria gets their center back in the north. Russia walks right into Munich while no one moves to Berlin. Wow. So that puts them at 7, and England was at 7, right? So is this a split up?
Yep.
Yeah, between Chris Brand and Nicolas Auguet. Wow. Yep. Interesting. And I was curious. We were talking about how useful that unit in Warsaw was going to be. It just went to Livonia and back. But, that's a finesse move, I guess. It could have gone to Silesia and had more ability to force something, but instead it didn't, and Nicola kind of slipped in the back to Munich.
Well, Nicola did, if we go back to the fall, did try to take the top from Chris. If you look at what Baltic Sea and St. Petersburg did there, that speaks to me like he was trying to get something with those units.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think for those viewers who aren't clear on what McCullough is saying, one thing that Chris could have done here, if he was using the North Sea to make some kind of attack on the Low Countries, What Chris could have done is use Denmark and Norway to self-bounce in Sweden, thereby using those two units to cover all three Scandinavian centers. Had that happened, the support of Baltic Sea for Norway to Sweden would have been an unwanted support and would have moved the fleet in Norway into Sweden, allowing Nicola to sneak into Norway. Of course, that's not how Chris ordered, so it made no difference. But that's the whole rationale behind Nicola's move. This was not a friendly support.
It's a great game, really fun game, and as I understand it, emblematic of the way these 1907 games are played.
Beautiful.
Yeah, in the end, 7 centers was all you needed to get at least a joint top on this board.
Yeah, some beautiful play by some great players. I think it's hard to find much to complain about. I thought this was really, really interesting and really fun.
And if I'm reading that correctly, France could have ended on 6 because Romania actually supported France into Budapest, but France instead tried to take Romania. Expecting perhaps support from the only person they'd attacked in the entire game up to this point.
That's funny.
So the end of this game, Chris Brand and Nicolas Sahuguet both earned approximately 100 points. We've got a final rankings here I pulled down from the internet. A couple of the larger scores in this round were 202, so about double that. So I'm guessing based on center count and the rest, you were able to move up your score. Although it says Chris Brand in this game received 138.2.
So I'll just make a comment that I'm from reading the scoring system. So a tied board top, they actually go back years to look and see who was topping the previous year, and then if still tied the previous year. So actually, there's still board top awarded for whoever was leading, most recently to the top if they're shared at the end. Right. I don't know if it's the same number of points. I didn't get the nuance of the math there, but there is still a bonus awarded. So that was one of kind of the unusual aspects of the system.
So that would be why Chris would outscore Nicola.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And that was, if I remember correctly, that is when we go into the final board here, the same way as whoever. There was no Paris method. Usually what we have on DBN here when we do top boards is we have a Paris method. This was a random selection, and any ties would push back to the previous year, which if I remember correctly, I do think I've been at a top board where we've gone backwards rather than doing the Paris method more than 10 years ago. But this system is not, it's not new. So
it pays to be Russia is what you're saying.
Yeah. Start with 4, go to 1. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for that one. Let me get over to the control panel. And as we went through all the games, our top board is here. And so we do see Nicolas Sahuguet from this board does make it. For those of us who have watched DBNI, Ruben Sanchez every year makes it, and we wonder, who is this Ruben Sanchez? Well, look at this. He's really good. He makes it. He makes it everywhere he goes. Jan Clouet from France. For anyone who's been in the hobby, everyone knows Jan's name. France, obviously, former world champ, 2006 world champ in Berlin. So he won as France. So that will be interesting to see how he does today. The current WDC champion, Jamal Blackerly from Canberra, Australia. Got Austria on the board. Fellow countryman, never a WDC champ, but a Euro champ in Italy, Peter McNamara. Russia is Fabian Straub. I do not know Fabian. And we've got Sasha Mesakar in Turkey. One last note on Rennie. Rennie has 5 championships in his long career, a lot of Dutch championships, finished second at EDC most recently in 2021, as well as 4th at a Worlds back in 2009. So Rennie is a longtime hobby player, and I think I remember Rennie from like play by email way back in the day. So fantastic player, gave it a good run. But now we're on to the top board. Guys, when you hear these names, Adam, let me get a quick commentary based on this board draw. What is going to be the toughest matchup, player versus player or sphere? Pick one of the two.
Yeah, so I don't know the Russian and Turkish player, which I'm sure they're great players to make it onto a top board like in a tournament like this. But I am not familiar with either Fabian or Sasha. I don't know that either of them have played on top boards before. Certainly at World DipCons. Probably not. Maybe at Euro DipCons. I'm less familiar with kind of the landscape there. The top 5 players are in many ways the usual suspects, though Jan Clouet has been not appeared for a while as far as I'm aware. He used to play a great deal. I believe he's a former world DipCon champion. He's a fantastic player. Used to travel to North America a lot and play. Haven't seen him for a number of years, but it's no surprise that when he shows up at a tournament after a number of years that he's on the top board, because he's just a fantastic player, really likable fellow, and just brilliant diplomat. So personally, I'm watching the Western side of the board. England, France, Germany. Nicolas, very familiar to me. Great. Obviously, we saw him in the last game. Plays brilliantly. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Very patient player. Moves at the right time. And Jamal, who is our current world champion, could he be in for a repeat? I mean, it's hard to bet against Jamal whenever you watch him play. He just does everything right and it makes the board move to his desires. So I'm excited for that. Peter McNamara, what can we say? The TI-85 of diplomacy. So again, and excited to see what Fabian and Sasha can do, and Ruben as well. Ruben is a fixture on top boards, so excited to see if he can finally pull one off.
Well, thanks for analyzing, everyone. We appreciate that. Now, Michalis, so to answer your question, Jan won in 2004 WDC, and it has. Trying to see where it was located. 2004 ManorCon. It was the scoring system.
Britain. It would.
UK.
Oh, okay.
UK.
Yep.
Yeah.
Birmingham in 2004. ManorCon 22. Was also on the European Grand Prix that year. But Jan has won, according to World Diplomacy Database, 20 titles in his day. Euro DipCon in 2003 and Worlds in 2004. So that is a heck of a run. So
yeah, he's certainly one of the most decorated players. Hasn't been around too much the last few years, but
his most recent championship was in 2008. Yep. Michalis, you've played against a few of these names in some online games recently. Is the tension going to be in the West, or what can we see if not there?
Well, we know Peter McNamara does very, very well as Italy on top boards. We've seen it happen multiple times. Peter McNamara has won as Italy on top boards. I love playing Italy. What I will say is that 1907 is not an Italy-friendly cut-off time. The top boards we've seen Peter winning as Italy are usually much longer, 1910, 1918 even for DB&I. 1907 is really going to push it a bit. Peter can be a very aggressive player. I would be very scared if I'm Ruben and see Peter in Italy in a 1907 cut-off top board. I would not be at all surprised to see Peter going straight into Ruben here and going, right, I need dots and I need dots quickly.
Ben, you've been Turkey on a couple of top boards against some heavy sharks for some names we do not know. What's the strategy, especially in a short time frame like Michalis was just saying?
You just got to find someone to work with. You got to take whatever offer you get. If it's an AT, if it's a triple with two of the others, you just got to be able to make a move and not be shy, not be hesitant, and find someone, because the last thing you want is for AIR to just decide, well, we got to move quick. Let's get Turkey out and then move on from there.
Yeah. And Adam, one last thing before we get to some pregame interviews. Russia in that stance. If you're Russia going against these names, do you just go to Turkey and say, come on, we got a juggernaut and let's race to a victory in 7 years?
Man, that is so hard to do on a top board. It's so easy to say that, but what happens on top boards, at least in my experience, is everyone holds their cards so close and is so cagey, and it's so hard to know who is the person that you actually can work with and can trust. It's like, imagine what it's like on a normal board where that's playing for something and multiply that by 1,000. And I don't even really know how to describe it, but every top board I've ever played on personally, the level of caginess is just multiplied up. And so this idea that you can just say, I'm going to pick my ally and we're going to roll with them and hope one of us wins, man, it's a great concept. I wish it worked. I've never seen that happen.
Well, let's see. We've got 4 pregame interviews. Lots of thanks to give out to the people that helped us, and we'll get to that after we see these. But let's hear from some of the players.
Sasha Massacre, you made it to the top board of World Championships in what, like your first face-to-face tournament? What is it?
First face-to-face, but second tournament.
Great, congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. How do you feel about drawing Turkey?
I like Turkey because it's in the corner, so I will probably win this year, but I can be stuck, so I've got to expand.
What do you think about your neighbors?
I don't know them all well, so I have to make some negotiation, but I think I will be fine.
Lots of francophones on this board. Advantage or disadvantage for you?
They're not on my side, so it's neither, I think.
Okay, well, it's good to have you. It's very nice to see people who have not been around the hobby for decades making the top board. Go out, play well, and I'm sure you will be a bit of a fan favorite. Like, it would be amazing if you win. I would love it anyway.
Thanks.
Have fun. Nicolas Sauguet, how did you rig the system to get France?
It was purely random, so I took a piece of paper and I got lucky, so maybe it's a good sign.
So what do you think about your neighbors? Can you work with Germany and England well, do you think?
Yeah, Jamal in Germany is very strong, and I didn't really work with him in the past games I've played with him, but I will have to do it. And Jan is, I've known him for 20 years, so I haven't played so much with him, but he's a strong player, so we should be able to talk about things.
And so you have an idea already what the play styles might be like, a little bit of your neighbors. Jamal said that lots of the players he hasn't played with. I suppose you have probably played with almost everybody, if not everybody on the board?
Yeah, more or less either virtually or face-to-face. I think I've played at least one game with everyone.
So, okay, so what do you think about like the newcomer in Turkey, Jan? He's far away from you.
Sasha, I think?
Sasha, sorry, I messed up the names here. Sasha, of course, Turkey.
I've played with him in the French Virtual League like 2 or 3 years ago, and he's very talented young players. In like his first tournaments online, he was second or third, so I think he's a very talented player. So I think if he gets an opening, he could be dangerous.
So he can maybe stir the East for you a little bit, or he will just like work the other people who've been on top boards over and over again against each other.
The risk is somebody underestimates him, and then with Turkey, if you move out of the box, maybe sometimes you're unstoppable. And as France, there is little I can do to stop Turkey if Turkey is out of the box. So. Sure.
All right. I wish you all the best. Have fun and good luck, Nicola.
Thank you, Robert.
Jamal Blakarli, defending champion. What did you draw?
I drew Germany.
So are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. So the number one thing that I'm very happy with is I got my favourite country, which is always the country on the opposite side of the board from Peter McNamara.
Oh, that sounds about right. But you are on the same side as Jan and Nicola.
Yeah.
They are very, renowned players. What's the plan here?
The whole board's renowned players, right? You're never going
to
draw a country.
True.
Anyway, I go into every top board like this for people at home. This is the Jade Buddha way. There's no plan. You got to go in. You got to talk to people. You got to see who you feel. It's all about the feel and the gut. So I'm gonna talk to Jan. I'll talk to Nicola. I'll talk to Fabian in Russia. I'll talk to everybody, and it's about who do I feel good about, and let's build a plan based on what I feel.
Have you played with everybody on the board before?
I've played with Nicola and Peter, and that's it. So it's a whole board of new people for me. So we'll see how that's. And they all speak French. So I don't know how I'm gonna go, but yeah.
Okay, I wish you well. Have fun and good luck.
Thank you.
Mara, which country do you play?
Italia.
So how much did you have to pay the TD, because it was random choice? Random.
No, I was second to pick, and I got to choose Italy
Okay.
by picking the random piece of the paper, which I didn't know which country it was.
So, do I assume that is a country you like to play?
I think that's the consensus amongst the commentary. But yeah, I won one big tournament as Italy, and now people sort of are scared of me as Italy, at least the online players.
You have Nicolas Sarguet in France, who also, I believe, won his WDC as France. So, can you play that card?
He's the best player of France in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
So
what's the game plan here? Have you prepared at all last night?
No.
You know what you're doing anyway.
No.
I don't believe you, but
I need to brush up on my French.
Yes, lots of French people on this board, but I mean, I wish you all the best, and let's see if I can find some other people.
Well, thank you, Robert.
I'm on mute. Everyone else is not. Technical difficulties. Great. Yes. Je parle français un peu. So I could have been perfect for a sideline reporter to get a couple of words like "Where are the bathrooms?" and 2 beers, please. I think that's
Donde
that's the
está la
extent.
biblioteca? Oh wait, no,
Yeah.
that's Spanish.
Don't quit your day job.
Well, no, you only know how to ask for 2 beers, not just one.
Yeah. Well, 2 hands. Yeah, I mean, that is so. We're going to a foreign country. I mean, it non-English speaking. I think the last one was in Marseille. I think back in 2019. That was the last one in a non-English or non-predominantly English. I know last year was, I think, mostly English going, but certainly a factor when you're on your top board. If you're standing at the board, you get three folks next to you, and none of them are speaking your language. You might have no idea what's going on, and that's an advantage. So we'll see if that plays out. One thing we did is this top board goes to 1908, not 1907. So Peter McNamara does have one more year to sneak in some extra dots if he feels he doesn't need to be super aggressive off the top. Ben, anything else you heard from the interviews going into the game?
It's just very interesting. Some of these players knowing each other. Nicolas saying he's known pretty much everyone before. Jamal saying he doesn't know hardly anyone. Jamal is obviously on an incredible hot streak and is an incredible player. He's the type of player who, Ed Sullivan, I've heard describe himself as a social player, and Jamal, I think, is the same way, although they're very different personalities. Jamal's really likable. He will build relationships, and like he said, put that before the tactics. And it's interesting to know whether that will be harder or easier, given that he's not interacted with a lot of these people before.
Adam, shoot, you said something on there. New player. Who was when you were on the top board in 2016? Who was the newest? I'm trying to remember. Peter, maybe
Newest.
Yeah, it really wasn't a new. Like, well, what's it like going in?
Dave Miletsky was the newbie on that board.
Yeah, Dave was certainly not new at that point. No, I think Peter Jürgen might have been the newest to the hobby, at least at that point. He'd been around for.
Peter, by that point, had a reputation as being a world beat. I mean, he's total shark, right? So
yeah, I
don't think there were any new players on that board, to be honest with you. Probably at that point, and this game is like 8 years ago, the combined experience of tournament play by those players was probably, 100 years or something or more, so yeah. And we weren't that old back then.
No, certainly not. No, gray hair. No. McGoss going in with the target on your back. Did you feel it from Jamal or Peter a little bit? Nikolai just seemed to kind of, we'll do it, but he doesn't have as big of a target, I feel like, than the other two.
You can't. There's no target on anyone's back in a top board like this at the World Championship, because as soon as as any of the other players start focusing on one person, they're putting themselves at a competitive disadvantage. So I don't think Jamal will be bothered. I don't think anyone who's played top boards before will be bothered by that. Perhaps if they haven't and this is their first time and they've got some standout results to get there, maybe you'd be a bit more concerned you haven't yet discovered that. But I think anyone who's played at least a couple of top boards realizes quickly that there's no one to focus on. You can't just look at one person. You can't just target Peter McNamara on this board, because the only people who will benefit from Peter being targeted is everyone who's not near Peter, who gets to do whatever they want. So the West would love Peter to be targeted. The East is not really in their interests.
Well, let's see how it goes. Let's get the map to the stage here. Let's bring you guys back.
Are we picking our winners first?
Oh, good point. Yes, we should do that. Well, no picks. Wait, do you guys know or do you not know? Like, I know there's been rumors floating around.
I have no idea.
I deliberately avoided all of Discord all day, so I better get some reward for that.
All right, perfect. Then we'll let you go last. Then Ben is the not a DipCon champion.
I want to. Thanks for reminding me, Kevin. I am curious who McAllis genuinely thinks is his pick. So I hope I don't dissuade him. But I'm picking Nicolas. I mean, he is great at France. He knows people, and he's very experienced. And I feel like sometimes that can lead to, if it's close at the end, other people being okay with you winning. He's a very nice guy. He's very good at this. That's my pick.
All right, Adam, you're the farthest removed DipCon winner, so you get to go second.
The West is just too brutal for anyone to come out of it alive. So the Eastern powers, it's going to come from the East, and it's going to go with experience. And Ruben has been on so many top boards, he's going to eke one out and finally be a world champ.
All right, McCallus, did they steal either of your picks?
Ben stole my pick. I think Nicolas will win this. I think a shorter top board format favors France more than top boards do anyway. I think Nicolas knows how to play without upsetting his neighbors. I think that Jamal is a brilliant player, but Jamal, the way he likes to play is usually he likes to build a big alliance and take risks, and I don't think he's going to find a partner for that sort of style on this board. And I think that there's probably going to be an EF, and I think Nicolas will come out on top of that over Jan. But I don't know Jan, and maybe Jan will come out above Nicolas. But my pick would be Nicolas.
All right. Well, I will be rooting for Russia, because that rhymes or starts with there. The alliteration will help, and I will be rooting for Russia. No spoilers. All right. To spring 1901. Ben, give me the orders. Adam, give me your World Diplomacy Championship take on those orders, and McCallus, fill in where we missed.
So we've got France making moves towards Belgium, but getting bounced in Burgundy by Germany. Maybe arranged, maybe not. We've got England doing pretty standard moves north with Liverpool to Yorkshire, Russia, standard, Austria, standard. Italy gets into Tyrolia, giving them some flexibility. Turkey makes sort of the older face-to-face move, Smyrna to Constantinople, which will, set them up if they get any leverage into the Balkans.
Yeah, these are largely unremarkable moves, which is not surprising for Spring 01 of a top board where no one wants to make nobody wants to do anything funny. The one thing that I would highlight is what happened in Burgundy, which is the bounce in Burgundy. And if I'm Jan, I'm smelling that as, at a minimum, the two of them are on the same page, and I'm concerned about that, right? It's the only move that really reveals any information other than just a whole bunch of people doing kind of the things that they normally do to keep their cards to their chest. But that move is the one that I'm focused in on, and I'm thinking about very carefully if I'm Jan, or frankly, if I'm anybody else on this board.
So when you're in the room, is there chatter at the table? Hey guys, did you notice that? Or do you keep that to yourself as a nugget you want to bring up in the next conversation?
Super cagey. No, the people are not going to be pointing that out, but I think it's, if it's not a direct topic of conversation, people are going to be asked, so is there an FG? Is there or maybe ask the question in a different way, but it really tells you something, right? That's the move that happened, right? Because Jamal, in order to make that move, is number one, giving a big advantage to Nicolas to enable him to get bounced back into Marseille, and he's foregoing his own shot at Belgium, right, or supporting himself into Holland, right? So that's a big sacrifice on Jamal's part to give, frankly, a fairly sizable advantage to Nicolas. So how does that play out, right? And does Jamal earn something for doing that? That's really what's on my mind here. And if I'm Jan, I'm not thrilled to see that, and I'm going to be doing what I can. And this would not shock me to see if to see a 3-build France here, because Jan may just say, you know what, I'm going to let Nicolas take Belgium and make him a target of himself rather than trying to bounce there.
Yeah, McCall, it's a big picture on the board. How are you reading it?
I think that it's very cagey, but what I would say is that I'm pretty sure everyone will be discussing the bounce in Burgundy. Probably not at the table, but they will all be discussing it privately. Because the problem with being really cagey is that you have to fill 15 minutes of conversation while you're trying to keep your cards as close to your chest as possible, which isn't necessarily what you're doing in a normal game, but you definitely do when you're trying to be cagey on the top board. And so you just grasp at anything that you can talk about in the first couple of phases. And hey, look, I can make a 3-minute conversation out of what may not matter in the slightest, but there's a bounce in Burgundy. I'm going to use that as a filler to take up someone's time so that they're not talking to other people. And this is a way that you can leverage yourself some time management. Because on the top board, the early phases, you actually feel like you've got too much time. And then there just comes a switch, 1902, 1903, where that flips around, and then you have nowhere near enough time, and you never have enough time again. But certainly in spring of 01, and depending how long the caginess continues, maybe into 02, 03, you're grasping at anything you can talk about. And this is a good talking point for you to monopolize some time with your neighbor and stop them plotting against you with someone else.
And just to add to that, it's actually not about looking for things to talk about. It's looking for things to get somebody else to talk about, right? Because you would rather they be doing the talking than you, right? In the hopes that they're going to share something about how they're thinking. You're not expecting them to reveal anything major, but can you get a sense of how they're thinking about things by the way they respond to a question or by the way they respond to a comment?
I bet. So, and the one other thing we don't point out there is Venice to Tyrolia. I mean, could that have been part of it? Does Jamal say, I can't do anything. I can't trust Peter because Peter may be aggressive. Bounce me back. Could it have been Jamal's request of a bounce?
If I don't know, but if I'm Italy here, I'm open to Tyrolia almost every day of the week, unless I'm offered Trieste. I'm going to Tyrolia. I'm sorry, that's where I want to be. That's going to get everybody asking me, "What are you doing in Tyrolia?" And it's going to open the door to having conversations. And when somebody says to me, "What are you doing in Tyrolia?" I can say, "I don't know. What do you want me to do?" Right, and then you can just start to get a feel for people. So on a board like this, 100% of the time, I mean, I don't want to say 100% of the time, but most of the time, that's what I'm thinking about doing.
It also makes you a little bit, even though you're moving next to 2 Austrian dots, I think it makes you a little bit less concerning to Austria because you have other things you could do than go to Trieste, even though you could still go to Trieste.
Yeah. All right, McAllis is he going to go to Trieste? Nope.
All right, so looking at fall of 01, we see a pretty standard convoy into Tunis. We see France taking 2. We see Turkey does bring the fleet out. There's a DMZ in Black Sea as Turkey pulls anchor to Constantinople, and Russia does not jump into Black to take advantage. No bounce in Belgium, no bounce in Holland, so nothing particularly funky going on in the west. And we do see that bounce in Belgium, so Jan has not decided to just let Nicolas have free. He decides that he doesn't want to face Nicolas Sahuge getting that big that soon.
Interesting thing here to me is that Turkey will not be able to build in Smyrna. So if they build another fleet, they'll have 2 fleets on the Black Sea, and that will be very, they'll have to decide what they're doing with that, whether it's a move into the Black Sea or not.
Yeah, Adam, the old. Oh, go ahead.
I was to say, yeah, that's the disadvantage of the old school Turkish opening. It's why it's sort of fallen out of favor in the online and virtual meta, because as soon as Italy started frequently moving to Aegean Sea and that there became a need for Turkey to be bringing fleets out early, you can't have that army in the way. And as Ben said, that army is now very much in the way. Fleet Ankara is nothing but hostile to Russia. Army Ankara is horrible if you're in this position as well, though, because that's a pro-IT build, but you've brought a fleet towards the Med, which is not pro-IT. So you're sort of trying to find an ally, but you're going to upset somebody with this build no matter what you do as Turkey.
Well, arguably, it's a feature, right? Because it allows you to build fleet Ankara without necessarily immediately angering for Russia, because it's your only option. So, I think there's different ways to look at it. I agree with you. I think an army build here would be a mistake. I think you have to build the fleet regardless of whether you're going to the Black Sea or you're going out and just trying to shuffle them around. I'll be interested to see what Sasha decides to do here.
Adam, one follow-up on that. So Russia's got two builds. Is that even more of a reason for Turkey to say, look, I got to put two fleets, or I have to build the fleet there to keep you contained?
I think you have to build a fleet there. It's not it doesn't necessarily need to move to the Black Sea, though. I mean, that's negotiable like everything else in this game, right? And I don't know what the right answer is in terms of where it goes, but I think you got to put it down. I don't think you can build an army here. I mean, an army here in many ways is equally threatening to Russia, because where's it going to go at that point? It's going to get bottled up unless something goes to Armenia, right? So I'm almost, as Russia, I'm just resigned. I mean, at least Turkey isn't in the Black Sea yet. And if they're going to end up being there, or I got to bounce a turn while they move Aegean out, Khan out, and we bounce an Ankara turn, I mean, it's not great for either of us, but maybe that's what I got to do.
All right, Ben, what is the most reasonable but aggressive build you're going to see here?
Yeah, I was just thinking this. Does anybody declare themselves with this build? Do we get really EF builds? Do we get a fleet in the north coast, St. Petersburg or something? What is the most reason? I mean, if somebody wanted to be aggressive, what would be the way for them to be aggressive?
Yeah, I'm not talking fleet Trieste here. Give me something that's legitimately possible to happen.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about the fleet in Ankara. I think that would be pretty reasonable. I guess the most reasonable build that would be declarative would be North Coast St. Petersburg. And then, if they're working with Germany, they'd get Norway. It would be a very declarative build.
Wow, we got Fleet Edinburgh. I was about to say that I'm expecting Fleet London here, but I guess Jan is really trying to make an ally here with that build, and it's probably the right choice, even though it's not intuitively the right choice, but it probably is a good choice for him to do that.
I was to say, there was, to me, a faint possibility of Army Venice dropping down. It would have depended on the Peter Rubin situation, but if Peter thought that Sasha, he could get an IT going, that if Sasha was perhaps going to build that army, as I mentioned before, Army Venice and going all in on an IT, I think could have been justifiable without being as crazy as, say, a Fleet Trieste would have been.
You need more armies to attack Austria in that situation. What's the likelihood based on the map to get Russia maybe to help out with that?
I think it's too soon to tell. I think everyone's still been very cagey. There's maybe London's a little bit of a surprise, but the only thing that's surprising about it is that he's chosen an even more cagey build by building in Edinburgh. I don't think anyone has really shown a hand yet in this game.
At some point, somebody's got to do something, right? And certain countries don't have to show their hand right now, right? I mean, there's plenty of moves England can make, France can make, Italy can make here that are not necessarily aggressive, but Turkey's got to show something. Like, does Ankara go to Khan? Does it go to Black? Austria, do they go to Galicia? Russia, do they go to Galicia? What does St. Petersburg do? Somebody's going to have to show their hand right here, and nobody wants to.
Well,
right?
The good thing is, and I forgot about this, we had two sideline reports from 1901, a spring and a fall. So we'll play them back to back, maybe to get some insight on how we saw what we saw, and then we can look forward to annual reports thereafter to get the insight we are looking for.
So, spring of 01, sideline reporting, live from Veredo, close to Milan. Top board has just kicked off. What did you hear, Ed? Any first impressions?
So, in the West, there's a lot of speculation that Jan in England and Nicolas Sahuguet as French speakers will be allied and it'll be an EF. Jamal was doing his best to sort of work with that. Had talked about joke orders going to the Helgoland Bite, but changed. I think he feels like he might be under pressure in there, and he's not sure. How about you?
I heard she said it's not the vibe. In that game, not the vibe.
He needs a vibe.
Jamal was sort of flattering Jan quite a bit. He was like buttering him, like, "Oh, I've heard so much about you. You're such a great player." And Jan was like, "You're the reigning world champion today." And we're doing a little bit of that game, trying to form a connection there because they don't know each other that well yet. Fabian in the West, Russia seemed very keen on doing something in the East, very uncommittal in the North, saying, no, I will open normal, no weird stuff. AIR seems very interesting to him. He seems worried about McNamara, but wants to work with Ruben. That's how he feels like to me from the first conversation. In Turkey, frankly, seems a little bit nervous. First top four, great players around him. I think everybody's been very impressed with him this weekend, but he seems to be a little, on his toes.
So, and the last thing is the Austrian-Italian relationship. Ruben, as Austria, is definitely looking for a friend, as anyone would be. Is Peter McNamara that friend? He asked Peter to go to Piedmont. Peter said no. Peter didn't even try to ask Ruben to go into Tyrolia. Ultimately, then Ruben said, well, are you going to go west ever? And this is in spring 1901 already. And Peter says, well, before I think about going west, I'm going to need to have 5 dots. He goes, but we can talk about how those 5 dots occur later. And Ruben goes, okay. So there we go. That's the end of spring 1901.
Here we are again. Fall of 01. Big conversation, Tyrolia. Apparently, Austria was surprised. Ruben was surprised by Peter going there. Peter says, I want to have option. I want to be in the conversation. Ruben really wants Fabian, that is Russia, to take Romania with a fleet. Fabian says, like, if that army weren't there in Tyrolia, I might have done it. Now, no, maybe it's coming up to Bohemia. And then there is a conversation between Peter and Fabian, Italy and Russia. And essentially, Peter is asking Fabian, which is pretty interesting, what he should do. Should I take things with the fleet or with the army? Fabian says, the army. Then they're talking about what should he do with Tyrolia. Fabian suggests, how about go to Munich? Peter says, no, that is literally the worst move possible on this board. I will not do that. What did you listen to?
So I'm watching Jamal work it with John. Okay, he's trying hard. I think Jamal realizes that Nicolas Sauguet could be a potential enemy. I must admit, I'm sorry, Robert. I'm just a typical American, but Jan and Nicolas, all the conversations are in French. I don't know what the French word is for fleet build Brest, which is what we got for Nicolas. And I don't know how Jan's going to react to that because he did not build fleet in London. That's of super interest. The other thing I would note is Sasha in Turkey seems quite alone, doesn't have a lot of conversations with people. I'm not saying there's an error because it doesn't look like that's happening. It looks like rather they're just sort of bypassing him and all the big dogs are hunting with each other and they're leaving him right now searching for scrap. That's all I got.
Yep. See you for the next one.
So first of all, definitely a huge thanks to Robert and Ed. Both of them played this weekend. Ed wrote back, I think, to one of the messages, and Ed's played in a lot of diplomacy, face-to-face and online, and he said this is unlike anything he's ever seen. So kudos to the organizers and the quality of the players. Fantastic. But a bigger thanks is to Kate Sullivan, his daughter. She was the camera action, all of these interviews, and you're going to see some fun ones where they're at the board and a lot of that. So tip the cap to Kate for that. So Adam, any first thoughts? I know I was laughing every time I heard Ed trying to pronounce John, and then got the pronunciation down a little later. But anything more game focused?
Fascinating was the conversation early in the game between Peter and Ruben, where Ruben was asking Peter, are you going to go west? That's not typically the opening conversation that Austria and Italy have, right? It's usually about Turkey. That's really, really interesting, right? And it sounds like there was no further engagement on this subject, nor engagement with Turkey in the fall. I am really going to be keeping an eye on that.
It did seem like Peter cared a lot more about what Russia thought, right, from that conversation. So you might already think that he's picked a first choice for someone to work with, and we'll see if it continues that way.
There's a type of shot, the drainer shot, I think, that can smell blood in the water from about 3 or 4 miles away. If Sasha is nervous on this top board, there are 5 or 6 shots on this top board that can smell those nerves. Whether or not they're next to Sasha, they'll be inhaling those aromas and going, I see some dots in the future. I see someone who I can possibly get to do something that's not in their interests. Even if Sasha's not nervous, just the mere way that you present yourself, if you look nervous, people will take advantage of that. And there's probably going to be 3 people in the East that right now are going, right, how do I get Turkey to do something that's beneficial to me? Either make them my junior or just get their dots myself.
Well, Ben, let's see how Turkey can come out of this. We're going to go to spring 1902. Give us the orders, please.
So Turkey does not make a play for Black Sea. They rotate their fleets around, but instead Russia jumps right into Black Sea, also supports Austria into Bulgaria. Interestingly, Greece moves, so Bulgaria retreats to Greece. That won't be impossible to kick him out of, but it's just slows things down a little bit. Italy covers Venice, makes the play into Eastern Med. In the west, England is convoying to Belgium and surrounding Norway, but Germany moves up to Skagerrak, which will not allow England to necessarily be able to take Norway back. It's very interesting. Nicola in France is playing patiently, not moving into Burgundy, and not really committing very distinctly to anything.
What is the right alliance for the West to play against an AIR? It's an EG. Wow, we're playing a top board, and everybody is doing the things they know. It's almost like they know what's happening elsewhere on the board. Beautiful.
I mean, the shots have smelt the blood, and they're all coming for Turkey. I would be shocked if this AIR sticks together enough to ever actually threaten the West, though. I think this is going to be a feeding frenzy where they're all going in and I want this dot, and within a year or two when Turkey's dead, I'm not expecting, and would be very, very surprised to see moves to, say, Tyrolia, Bohemia, Silesia, and the sort of air moves you'd expect. And I think the West would also not expect those moves. I think that's why Jamal is going to Ruhr rather than already trying to do something in Silesia. And I think that whether this is an EG, an EF, it remains to be seen. England's moves could be pro-German, but they might not be. And France is not committed to anything yet. It's Nicolas Sahu on the top board. Trying to get him to commit to something this early is going to be like trying to draw blood from a stone.
Well, it's clever, but it's clever moves by Jan, right? Because he manages to get himself Belgium and make an ally in the north to shore up the northern position without really making any commitment against anybody other than kind of saying, okay, well, Russia, you attack me first, so this is perfectly okay for me to pursue retaking Norway and then ultimately taking St. Petersburg because I need to lock things up against you. And then he's got 6 centers and he's in a position to make some decisions, but he doesn't have to make any decisions about, am I working with Germany against France or France against Germany or something else, for another 2 years probably. So that's great for Jan.
Yeah, hey Ben. So then I was going to ask Adam, based on McCall's comments, Nicola's been around this game. He's with us on DBN. He knows the meta. He's participated in this. He knows maybe EG is the strongest alliance against. So how's he going to fight against it? How does he say to Jan, EF is better than EG in this situation?
I don't know that he has to say that because I'm not sure Jan is going to be inclined to attack him that quickly. He needs to shore up the north, right? I mean, he's managed to get Belgium. As long as Nicola is not going to start pinging on Belgium, which maybe Nicola will, but he didn't go to Burgundy, right? He just self-bounced there. So until he feels threatened by Nicola, I don't think he has to worry about Jan yet, right? It's just what position is he going to be in at such point where Jan has to make a decision? And is he going to be in a better position to help Jan and for the two of them to work together or not?
I mean, this is, even with a 1908, this is a short game, and EG haven't got the jump on Nicola. How long is it going to take them to fight in and actually take centres from Nicolas Sahu on this top board? They could attack now, and they might get Brest or Paris by the end of the game. That's the sort of time span you'd be looking at to do that. I think Nicola will be perfectly comfortable right now, and I don't think he'll be worried really at all, even if there's like a 3-on-3 hit on Burgundy here. I think he'd be fine with that, because sooner or later, one of them is going to come to him and go, all right, we need some dots. Either Belgium or Holland, they're the vulnerable centres on this board. It's not Brest, and it certainly isn't Paris.
Yeah, you're France. You got 5 centres, and you don't have 3 powers attacking you. You're fine. What are you worried about, right? Unless somebody really jumps out to a big lead, you're good.
Adam, seeing these moves, Adam, what do you read them out? What are you worried about? Well, don't tell us what you're worried about. You read them out, and Ben will tell us what he's worried about.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to just read them out because this is very interesting. So Jan Convoy's back from Belgium to Yorkshire, and the read on this is he's expecting to go down here, and he wants that army back on England. So he knew exactly what was happening here. Right? He knew that Belgium was where the English army was going to die, and he wanted to make sure he had an army back in England, so and he'll disband something else rather than trying to retake Norway because he sniffed out this FG. Now, is that going to help him in the long run? I don't know that it's going to help him, but it will make it a lot slower for the FG to take his centers if they continue to pursue it. Nicola and Jamal are really hardcore against Jan here. The interesting thing is they did not actually force Belgium, right? North Sea supports Belgium would have held Belgium right now because Denmark did not cut the North Sea. Of course, Jan could only assume that they were going to make that attack, and therefore he responded accordingly. This gets into the whole psychology of tactics in this game, and so Jamal says, well, he knows that he needs that North Sea is going to cut, therefore I don't need to cut the North Sea. And then Jan maybe says, well, maybe I don't need to protect, and so it creates all of this kind of questionable scenarios. But that's really fascinating. Elsewhere on the board, it looks like, gosh, did we miss a Turkish army getting to Greece last turn? That must have
retreated from Bulgaria.
That was a retreat. Okay, so that is now kicked out by the Italians with Austrian support. So that's really interesting, particularly that Reuben is perfectly okay with it being an Italian army. That's really interesting because normally Austria would much prefer that Greece be taken by a fleet from Italy. So that's fascinating. But they do take Constantinople with a lot of support here. So they are still getting a build out of the deal.
Yeah, they did find a way not to be slowed by that army in Greece. They are moving forward to Constantinople and keeping Bulgaria without risking. Obviously, here Bulgaria support Serbia to Greece wouldn't have worked. So, they found a way to keep things moving forward. A big risk by a significant risk by Nicola not supporting himself to Burgundy here, right? He really understood that he had Germany on side. He didn't need to worry about that. And Germany goes for the build instead of going for North Sea. Interesting, because England, in addition to, like you said, he could have supported Belgium, also could have taken Norway back because St. Petersburg doesn't support Norway. Instead, Norway goes to Sweden. So, which makes me wonder if Norway they certainly didn't expect Germany to do what they did, to put 2 on it. So while the diplomatic situation may have been clear to everyone, the tactics weren't. And it worked out great for Nicola and Jamal and not so great for Jan or Fabian.
I don't think Fabian will be that upset. I think that Fabian clearly saw the German attack on Sweden coming, and it looks like Fabian's decided to flip over and work with England instead. He's done this whilst keeping Norway, and he's got plausible deniability for keeping Norway. The interesting thing to me is Warsaw to Silesia. I said I wouldn't expect all of Tyrolia, Bohemia, Silesia moves to come, but it looks like Fabian perhaps does expect that. He was maybe expecting air moves, because otherwise that's sort of a single unit going on a hopeless adventure. Neither Austria nor Italy has come with him. I suspect Greece was Peter Matenmara's price for doing all of these very anti-Turkish moves, and I'm not really surprised to see it happen after Greece was left open for retreat in the first place. But I still don't expect the air to last, and now that Turkey's already down to 2, maybe the air lasts 1 more year. Maybe the air cracks as soon as next turn. Who's going to be the loser is going to be the big story for me going into 1903.
Well, the loser, based on this, I think they had builds on the report last time, so let's do the builds, and then we'll get to the sideline report. But the loser on the map here is the Witches. The winners are the Central Powers in France. Who's the biggest loser as far as who lost their chance at the title?
Turkey. This is basically game over. It's not completely game over, but for Sasha to pull this back and top this board would be one of the most incredible scenes I've ever seen on any top board, and we've covered a lot of top boards. I don't think I've ever seen a turtle come back from this low to top a board. The feeding frenzy started, and the feeding frenzy's not going to finish.
Yeah. England eliminated yet, or we're still too early to tell, Adam?
England? No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a tough road, but I don't think so. England's still at 4 centers. They can protect things right now. They're going to have it hard going, but, you know, it may not be in everybody's best interest for a concerted, strong attack against them. They have a really good case to work with the Russians here. Jamal may or may not see this as being his best plan to go forward. You know, a 6-center France right here, going on 7, going on 8. Is that what Jamal really wants to enable here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you don't even have Paris method advantage over France in this situation, as Germany usually does on a top board. So usually a tie would be favouring Germany, but given that this is random and that Nicolas would almost certainly take the centres before Jamal did, it's actually a tie that probably favours Nicolas over Jamal, which makes the German attack on England continuing here even more fraught with danger.
All right. Well, let's hear what the reporters had to say, and then Ben, we'll get your take right after the break.
So here we are again, 1902. What do you got?
So in the spring, the big issue is what's the alliance structure going to be? Germany proposes a Western Triple. Jan says, I must admit, it's against my principles, even though I think it would be good for me. Meanwhile, everyone is a little worried about Nicolas and what's going to happen with the fleet Brest, that it goes to mid-Atlantic. Then Peter said, where it will stay with a fleet in Spain forever until some opportunity materializes for itself. That was the spring, and then, of course, because there was this concern of a Western Triple in the East, there was a lot of talk about an AIR.
If I can follow up on that later, probably after they decide they will not do that, Germany and France decide that they will lure that English army off the island that is completely arranged with Jamal. Jamal knows that this is happening. Jamal is working hard to get free Burgundy that Nicolas just self-bouncing. Initially, he wanted to bounce with Jamal again. Jamal wants to get his armies involved. Interesting as well, Jamal and Fabian have talked about Skagerrak. Russia was aware of that and okay with that. Initially, Jamal straightforward told Russia, yeah, I might put it into Baltic. Russia was like, no, I would not like that. Then he has like, no, do Skagerrak. Yeah, well, okay. And they were sort of on the same page in the spring. In fall, I think that had changed a little bit. Russia got more worried about, am I a little in above my head? You know, what can I do? Can I hold Norway? Can I get Sweden back? Nah, difficult. Apart from that, everybody in the East, apart from Turkey, is in agreement that Peter should be in Greece so he can go west. That's what he's telling people anyway. But Austria and Russia are agreeing with that, and Russia and Italy seem to be clicking well. They seem to have a bit of a similar play style, snappy, effective conversations. They seem to like to work each other, is my impression.
As loyal viewers of DBN know, and DB and I, first finals, Peter McNamara played Italy, and everyone begged him to go west. The same phenomenon is occurring here, and Peter goes to Ruben and says, well, can I put my army in Greece? And Ruben goes, I don't want an army in the Balkans. And Peter goes, well, if you want me to go west, the Ionian is going the wrong direction, so a convoy would help me go west. And Ruben goes, oh, okay. And so now that we see what's happening with AIR, but also in the north, which in the fall, we see this move by Jamal and Nicolas against Jan.
Yep, that's about all. See you for the next one.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I gotta put my army there because the fleet will be going the wrong way, Ben. I mean, you hear that? You gotta agree to that, right, Ben?
Of course. I would be reluctant, but I can see why you would. It's funny. It's very much like a trust but verify. Like he got the army into Greece, but also he covered Trieste. So you can tell there's some nerves there, and those will release a little bit.
I'm sorry. Can I ask for a show of hands among the four of us? Who thinks that Peter McNamara is going to build a fleet? Probably, but who thinks he's going to go west right here? Raise your hand.
You mean like right now? Does he go to Tyrrhenian?
Yeah. Is he gonna go to
I
Tyrrhenian
think the
Sea?
fleet in Naples will go to
Right.
Tyrrhenian Sea and then never go any further.
Come on.
Buys him another time. Buys him
That's
another
not the
time.
question. That's not the question that was asked. That's why I raised my hand.
Okay.
He's
I
not
mean,
going into
so
France.
why is Ruben buying this? Is the question, right? And
Well,
you
Maybe
know,
he doesn't.
Well, sometimes feel like you don't have that many other options.
maybe he doesn't have a choice, right? He can't retake it himself, and he doesn't want Turkey there. So maybe that is the right thing. But the question I guess I ask is: are we about to have an IR, and is Ruben going to be the odd person out of that?
Yeah.
The problem that Peter has in going for a wintergreen here, and something that's very favourable to Ruben, is the fact that Russia is enmeshed in this war with Germany.
Yeah.
Russia is not in a great position to actually come in and attack Austria, and therefore the wintergreen potential is much lower than if Russia had a stable situation in the north and Silesia could easily come down to Galicia. So maybe he can sort something out with Germany to make it possible, but it sounds like Fabian is very concerned by Jamal already, and that was picked up on by Ed and by Robert there. We've already seen Sasha be quite nervous and then be ganged up on, and maybe Fabian will be in a sort of similar position, because this is one of those Russian positions that could collapse very, very quickly if he has some hostile relations with his neighbors here.
I'll make some predictions for the polls. It's Barents, Albania, and Syria. Any objections, Ben?
Barents, Albania, Syria. No objections unless no, probably not. Unless Albania has worked into a plan that someone else has, that maybe Peter has if he's. But I'm most curious about what Germany builds personally, because he commits directionally for the next year. If he builds a fleet, it doesn't necessarily mean he's with England the rest of the game, but it means I think that he's taking North Sea before he does anything next, and that would give him one sort of control. But armies would allow him to push into Russia.
So I'm going to go with Albania and Ankara go for Turkey. I think you keep an army. And I'm going to go with fleets, Fleet Brest, Fleet Kiel for France and Germany right here.
I'm going to go with Albania and Aegean go for Turkey. I do think you keep the army, but I think that the play that Sasha has left is to go to AI and say, right, I'm with you as a Janissary against Russia. And I think that helping one of them into Black Sea would be a possible option.
Adam wins the Turkey gamble, and no one gets the two fleets right. We've got Army Berlin.
Yeah, they're committed to fighting Russia, is what that tells me.
Yeah,
I think Army Silesia sort of forced that. I think building Fleet Kiel there was taking a potential match to your own game, because then all that happens is you make one incorrect guess over Berlin or Munich in spring, and it's game over for Germany.
Well, but you got that army in Ruhr, and if you're trusting, maybe you shouldn't be trusting France that much, but you could have rotated that back to Munich.
Nicola, very trustful, very trustful. All right, McAllis, we're gonna see Fleet Tyrrhenian. Hey, he's going west.
That's not going west, Kevin. Naples goes to Tyrrhenian Sea. Venice holds and doesn't move anywhere west. Eastern Med goes to Aegean Sea, which is also quite scary to Ruben, because that puts you next to two Austrian centers and doesn't put you next to another Turkish center. Other than that, it looks like we have Budapest into Romania, so Fabian is being hit by Austria here. There's a bounce in Ankara, Fabian presumably expected to get in, and Ruben has stabbed to prevent it. Germany takes Silesia, and Jamal does not get into North Sea, but Nicola gets into everywhere that he wants to get.
Dare I say that had Venice moved to Piedmont, there would be nothing protecting Marseille this turn. I'm completely puzzled by the move to. I guess the move to Paris is to get up to Picardy without going through Burgundy, but that left nothing protecting Marseille. But Peter didn't order it. I think Ruben probably is doing the right thing here. I think he has to attack Russia here, right? Or else he's basically just setting to make himself up the victim. I don't know how that's going to work for him if he's just going to have Peter trying to plop in behind him right now. But it feels like it's probably what he needed to do.
I think Nicola agreed with us that Peter wasn't going to go west in a real way, right? Leaving Marseille open.
Oh yeah.
Here's the question, though. Sorry to usurp your role of asking questions, Kevin, but if ask these two who are better players than I am, if Nikola does well and starts to grow here, does that make Peter more likely to go west because he needs to stop him, or less likely because he knows it's a losing fight?
I think that the better Nicola does in the west, the worse it is for Ruben in the east, because I think Peter will go, right, I need to race. And I wouldn't be surprised if Peter is already thinking, right, I need to race, and that's why he's in a GNC and lining up what looks to me like an attack on Austria. The fact he hasn't pushed to a G into 2 on Smyrna, maybe he'll still get Smyrna with con support, but given that Austria's already initiated hostilities with Russia, I think Peter will be looking at Ruben. And I think actually Ruben made the wrong call. I think if I was Ruben, I would have gone for Peter here.
Interesting.
I was thinking earlier when we were talking about Turkey being the odd one out. Is it just people take Turkey's dots, or can anybody get Turkey to help them to actually gain something? And I'll be curious if Italy does make that attack, if they can get help from Turkey with Constantinople.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I completely agree with Michaelis's point around Peter's strategy as Nicolas doing well. I think Jamal's play here is probably going to be, well, Belgium is mine right now. I will be shocked if it's not, but I just don't see how Nicola can make the argument with well, I guess he does have a guess on London or Liverpool, right? He can't force one. So that's actually probably his case for Jamal not taking Belgium yet. So, yeah.
All right, to the fall. Ben, the guesses don't go Nicolas' way, but see, Peter going west.
So he's got a move to Western Med. Will unclear whether Nicola knew that was going to happen. He doesn't get his gas, and he doesn't make play for Liverpool. Not that it would have worked either with just the one. Italy does go for Constantinople, but with support, while Austria gets into Ankara, which is kind of interesting. And they go for Serbia, though, letting Austria lose Romania while Russia takes it back. But Russia takes it back with a fleet, which is going to give them a really hard time making further progress against Austria. It's interesting. Germany makes this move down into Bohemia. So a lot going on. It's all it's a big mishmash here.
Yeah, Kevin, I've got to say, I'm interested in what different definition of Italy going west you have that sees Adriatic and Tyrolia and a tap on Serbia as moves of an Italy going west, because that's not the definition I've ever played by, but I might have to throw up this definition in future games if it's something that people will actually believe. And I'm going west, guys, honest.
The next broadcaster brawl, I'm going to make sure I get Italy to go west.
I just want to point out one thing for Ruben's moves, and again, one thing that could have been brilliant here was if Bulgaria just supported Romania here instead of supporting the Italian into Constantinople and left them in the lurch. They would have held Romania, held Constantinople, and gone up from Ankara as well. So they would be +2 instead of, I guess, even here. I guess even with a rebuild. But man, that would have been a very big dynamic changer.
Yeah, so I was going to ask this last time, but I figured we would get some resolution to it here. Michaelis, is the bounce of the convoy from 7 to Ankara from Austria, and then obviously going full attack, is that too aggressive against Russia there, given what you said? Oh, I might have even gone west at Peter at that point. If you didn't go west, you have to go so aggressive to the east?
I think Ruben had to make an aggressive move, yes. I think that the longer it had stayed as it was with an air where neither Austria or Russia was really committing against Germany, you're just asking for a wintergreen. So I think Ruben had to take the opportunity of surprise that he had on one of them. I think he chose the wrong one. I said in spring that Peter was always the one I would have preferred to attack. But I'm really curious, mostly by Jamal's move here. Like, is Bohemia there somehow to help Ruben, or how on earth has Ruben managed to upset Jamal to the point where Jamal has gone, I want Austria to die here? Because that does not look like something Jamal should want to happen on this board, but he's backed out of pushing an attack on Russia. He's not gone to Prussia and Silesia at least. So the Bohemia move really confuses me.
Yeah, this is the longest sideline report of all of them that were uploaded. So I'm hoping there's a lot of background. We'll get to that in a minute here. Nicola makes the guess. I guess you're only going to guess at one. So if you're going to waste a couple of moves, hey, I'm going to bounce Peter because I know he's going west. Do you really throw both units knowing both are going to get bounced at him? What do you make of the EF situation here?
Well, I mean, I think the problem is if Peter doesn't go to the Western Med and for some reason NAO goes to Mid-Atlantic or something like that, you're really going to get a tanked position here, right? And so I think it's just a conservative play, and I think Nicolas can afford to be conservative. Again, from this position as France, you really, it's really about like, don't screw up. It's not about that you need to do something brilliant at this point in the game. You've got a lot of time, and everything is going your way. So I think it completely makes sense what he does here.
Yeah, and Ben, we were thinking Belgium might fall. Belgium did not fall. Jamal played it pretty tentative. Your thoughts on Germany?
No, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, I was just going to say that, they didn't Jamal didn't, first of all, Jamal's doing great. He doesn't need to be going faster, but he didn't end up using that army in Ruhr. And if he had built the fleet, then he could have taken North Sea by now. But maybe me being aggressive that way would have led to me getting stabbed. So who knows? But it's just interesting. I do think it's an important way of playing Germany to get involved in the East as things are going well in the West, because those English dots are far from you. And whatever he's doing in the East, he's giving himself a lot of play in that regard.
One last thing before we get to the video. Obviously, we get the builds, but does Sasha actually have a lifeline here with Austria and Italy fighting, or did they patch that up, McAllis?
I mean, it's a lifeline in that Sasha's probably not about to die, but it's not a lifeline back into the game. It's a lifeline that Sasha now has to sit there and can't even go and play other games or socialize with other people. Sasha's got to stand around this board being miserable for at least another year, possibly longer. So, if anything, as Sasha in this position, I'd have wished that they just killed me.
Adam, what's Peter going to build?
Peter's going to build Army Venice. I mean, what else is he? What else is he going to build? I mean,
I wanted to make you say it, just to make you say it. So, all right, and he does. So, all right. So let's hear what happened on the sideline, and that's all I know.
Next year, things are getting a little more emotional. One little funny thing from the side is adjudication. Peter is sort of the Napoleon of adjudication. He wants his negotiation time, and you're not in, please in, keep reading quickly. He pushes the pieces. It's quite funny. It's a lot about Peter in this year, I can tell that already. In spring, I heard that Jamal really still tried to be on Jan's good side. It sort of looked like FG worked together. England is the odd man out in the West. Jamal said, like, yeah, no, I'm not coming for you. Jan is a little upset. He said, like, I'm going down if you're not helping me. But Jamal is trying to stay a little bit in contact with everybody, on the good side of everybody. And yeah, Austria late in the day is quietly feeding moves to Turkey, working out a plan that Turkey can defend against what was perceived as an AR and then change. What do you have for Spain?
Okay, three things. Peter is the German of adjudication. It must be this way. Very demanding. Two, Jamal is the hardest working man in diplomacy. You can see why he's a world champion. He's talking to everybody, including Turkey. Every turn, he's got something to say. In the West, you would think that Jamal and Jan are in an alliance. No one's talking to Nicolas Sargay. He's just sitting there. He's making his moves. It's a 10-second conversation with Jamal, and he's got his operational freedom. In the West, in the East is where the action is going, right? Because we have this air. There's little disagreements on how to take out Turkey. Peter says, well, I'll move to the Aegean, and then I'll take Smyrna. And Ruben says, okay. In any event, Russia, but you may not have heard of Fabian. this guy's a really good player. It didn't go well for him in spring 1902 at that adjudication. He saw it coming. He's like, Ruben's a very impatient player. I know this can happen. I know how to respond. He went to Peter ahead of time and said, if this happens, let's come up with a game plan. It happened. He's very mad at Ruben in a very German way, though, so it's not mean, but it's very direct and firm.
He was like, beginning of fall, Ruben was saying, sorry, I was a little bit afraid, and he was like interrupted by Fabian. Yes, you're always afraid, I know. And so they are not getting along too well, and then in fall, everybody wants to talk to Peter, right? Russia wants to talk to Peter, France wants to talk to Peter, arranges a bounce last minute in the Western Med. Peter is almost getting a bit annoyed, which I rarely see out of him, because like he feels he has too little time. Okay, no, I don't want. Okay, whatever, I'll bounce there. Working all sides, everybody wants to work with him. Russia asks him to tap the right unit of Austria that he can take Romania back. Austria says like, yeah, let's work together with Turkey. And it seems like Peter is really the pivotal player who can make the decision here in fall and has to decide where he wants to go.
So in the fall 1902 moves, it's a sort of, Ruben makes this unilateral decision to stab Russia. He doesn't inform Peter. Ruben and Peter talk. Ruben goes, I thought you were going to be in the Aegean and we can take Smyrna based on the conversation in 02. And Peter goes, I'm in the Aegean. I moved Eastern Med there because you're the one who told me Ionian couldn't move east. That's why I'm here. And you're seeing Peter get a little frustrated with Ruben and working with Fabian, just like it was anticipated before. So Ruben may get a little pin back. That taking back of Romania. It's not an arranged thing, although Peter had gone to Ruben and said, you need to work it out. Look at the FG. We need to work together right now. But Peter says that, but this is where he's at. In any event, Peter really is the pivotal person. What's going to happen? And now he builds Army Venice. So is he coming after Ruben? What is he doing with that army? Ruben, I'm positive, wanted to see a fleet to go away.
Absolutely. Let's see how it goes on. Take care.
Muted everyone. I think I unmuted everyone because I do not want to pull a Brian Prabel, but you did see the banner. League night will be back next week, so we will get a couple of muted comments, hopefully by Brian at that time. We've missed Brian. So frustration building in on the current diplomat of the year. What's your take, Ben?
I mean, he's frustrated, but his position is still very good. We didn't hear much. I don't think we heard about the conversations between Jamal and Peter, did we? That's one that I'm curious about. But it is very interesting to hear the relationship between Ruben and Peter. And I do think, as we've all been saying, Peter's unlikely to go west. He's likely to come into Ruben. And a lot of it will depend on Russia and Germany's interaction here.
I think it's really interesting that it was Nicola that arranged that bounce in the Western Med, and he did it late in a phase, and Peter felt a bit flustered. I think this is really, really good play by Nicola. This is why he's a world champion. He isn't worried about Peter going west, but he does not want that fleet going to Ionian Sea right now and going and taking the Turkish dots. If Nicola is in a race against Peter, he wants Peter's units spread out so that he can't easily secure all the Austrian and Turkish dots. He's got to pick a focus. If that unit in Tyrrhenian Sea had gone to Ionian Sea right now, it would already be a case of, all right, well, I can take Trieste, I can probably take Serbia, Bulgaria, Smyrna, maybe Ankara by the end of this game. And Peter would be counting the dots up. And Nicola would also be counting those dots up and going, that's quite hard for me to get more dots. So by arranging that bounce himself, he slowed Peter's growth down for the next 2 years, most likely. And that is really, really good play by Nicola. And that's why he's a world champion.
On to spring 1904. Adam, give me your first take.
Okay, so the Austrians kick Italy out of Constantinople and bounce the Russians in Romania. Romania goes to the Black Sea. It looks like interesting that Ukraine goes back up to Warsaw. I guess that's the cover from the Germans, who now do shift into Prussia Silesia. So that Bohemian move was, I guess they saw, Jamal saw something last turn and then ultimately decided to go back after Russia anyway, which is that's something that happens. In the West, Here, I guess Jan guesses wrong and loses Liverpool as a consequence. So that's not optimal for them. And Nicola pulls back into Spain. I guess that this is, I don't know. I mean, this may be related to not being able to arrange a bounce in Western Med, but wanting to have something down there this coming turn. Of course, they're now going to have English fleet in NAO, so they'll have to think about whether they need to go back up to Mid-Atlantic or what to do with that. But I mean, this is continuing to come up really well for Nicola. The other really important move here is Ruhr to Munich, which succeeds, which essentially means that Nicola now doesn't have to worry about getting kicked out of Belgium in the fall, which would be sort of the logical thing for Jamal to be saying, as we mentioned earlier. Now that you've got an English dot, Germany should be getting something, so give it to us. Of course, Germany has a reasonable shot at getting Warsaw right now. If well, I don't know. It's not a guarantee that Galicia gets cut, so it's maybe not.
I think that this is the second turn in a row we've seen Jamal sort of go somewhere. He was going after Russia, then he dropped down after Austria. Now he's going back after Russia. It's not easy to keep going back and forth without getting anything on the top board. Nicolas Taillet did it brilliantly on a VDL top board a few years ago, one that I may or may not have lost as a result. When he did it as France and just did this flip up, I might take something from England, then flip down, I might take something from Italy, and in the end he got his breakthrough. But Germany, I think, has a much harder time doing that because they don't have that safe corner position. Given that England's already down Liverpool and Edinburgh can only be protected by North Sea, London then has to be protected by Wales. If Jan is thinking, because I'm guessing these moves to North Sea have actually been pro-England, if Jan is thinking maybe I want to help Russia, he could go, well, I'm dead anyway, maybe I'm going to tap Denmark here and give Russia Sweden, and that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Russia does have to be thinking about where they're growing next, and if they need to be worried about being in a fight with Austria that ultimately benefits Peter McNamara more than anyone else.
I mean, really, the four of them all stayed steady last year, and Peter was the only one to grow. So,
but if Peter had already got that other fleet into Eastern Med, if there hadn't been that bounce in Western Med right now, Peter's position would be incredible. And that one bounce that Nicola arranged, this is the result. Peter's position in the East isn't quite as secure as it could be.
Yeah. So we're at fall 1904. By the time this move ends, you're halfway done. When's the pressure for? I mean, Jamal. Who's all right here? Round table. Quick answer. 5 seconds. It's Adam. Who's feeling the most pressure going into this turn? I think this is make or break for a couple of them.
Gosh, there is so much pressure on this board. I have to say Russia really has some very, very hard decisions to make right here. There are a lot of strategic and tactical decisions that Russia's going to have to make with their moves. And man, I would not want to be in their shoes having to make those choices right now.
Ben, Jamal, or Ruben? Who's the other one?
I was going to say Russia also, but I think with Ruben, I'm trying to have a conversation where I make up with Russia and I'm putting things on Trieste and Greece. So it's not the hardest decision, but it's a really important conversation with Fabian here.
Yeah, I don't think that Nicola, Peter, or even really Ruben, they're under pressure because it's a top board and you want to win it. But I don't think they're under pressure by game circumstance so much because what they're doing is obvious. What they do right now, you don't have to think too much. Nicola's going to take some English dots. Peter's going to take some Austrian dots. Ruben's going to defend from Peter. Your actual plan sort of writes itself. It's how you go about doing it that is the question. You don't have to make tough decisions. It's Jamal and Fabian right now that have to start making some really tough decisions on where they think their future growth in this game is going to come from. So I think that they're the two most under pressure.
All right. Well, tell me about those pressure-packed decisions.
Well, Fabian guesses correct on every front and does get that English tap on Denmark. So Fabian may have been under pressure going into this phase, but he's played an absolute blinder. Well done. Gets into Ankara, just walks in, keeps Warsaw because Ruben hasn't tapped Galicia. So even if Germany had gone for Warsaw, it wouldn't have worked. So he's probably got something going with Ruben. And he gets that English tap, so he gets Sweden. He's +2. Water turn for Fabian. Sasha gets a build, which is fascinating because Peter decides that he'd rather Ruben lost a unit than worrying about Turkey building one, which actually surprises me to some degree. Ruben gets back into Trieste but loses Vienna for his trouble, and nothing much else happens in the West. Maybe Jamal thought he was going to get Belgium, but Nicholas certainly didn't walk out of it for him.
What a guess by Peter McNamara in Greece. He braces the unit 3-on-3 when so many other things that Ruben could have tried would have worked. He is so good tactically at figuring out just the right move at the right moment.
And that's it. You never win a 50-50 against Peter McNamara. And
I wanted Robert to pinch him during the opening interview just to see if he flinched.
I love that Fabian went to Jan and asked him to cut Denmark while his home centers are all under attack, and he had the goal to ask for that. And Jan looked at it and said, "Sure, why not?" I love it. I think it's a brilliant move by Jan as well to say, you know what, these guys came against me. This is the best thing I can do to help somebody else in this position, so I'm going to do it. I absolutely adore that move for the two of them.
And Jamal has now got a real big problem because he hasn't got Belgium. He's lost Sweden. Instead of building one this year, he's pulling one this year. None of them are good pulls. If you pull Livonia, your attack on Russia's over. If you pull Baltic, your attack on Scandinavia is over. The pressure has definitely shifted almost entirely onto Jamal at this point.
This looks like a 4-horse race with 3 out in front and Jamal a little bit behind, and the 3 horses out in front. Probably far ahead right now is Nicolas, and close behind, and maybe a little bit behind are Fabian and Peter, and then Jamal, and then our other 3 powers are not looking great right now in terms of being able to win this game. But again, we're only halfway through, so a lot could change.
In terms of win prospects, I might even pick Ruben over Jamal at this point. I know Ruben's position is bad, but it looks like by not tapping Galicia, maybe he can work something out with Fabian, and Fabian could go after Turkish dots now, and Ruben could offer support on that. I can sort of see a scenario where Ruben gets back up to 7 or 8, and maybe that's enough to win. I just don't see centers for Jamal to take in this game.
Yeah, we were talking. Was it last week or was it maybe the previous broadcast? But Russia at 8 is not it's not any other power at 8. Russia needs to be at 10 here, even though the beautiful fan of the center chart shows the 5 different centers
and he's almost I think he's probably forced to put down armies in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and that's not really what you want to build here, right? But I think he has to. I mean, Jamal is just as likely to pull Livonia, but if he doesn't, you're in a world of pain if you don't have those 2 armies down.
Yeah, I hate guessing builds, but this is one I actually do want to guess builds. Ben, I'm going to make you think about the French build. Adam, give me your Russian builds if you are going to be aggressive. Let gamble that Livonia is coming off the board. What do you?
Well, if I think Livonia is coming off the board, I'm probably building Moscow and Sev armies, right? But if I'm not really sure of that, I don't feel good about being in that position where I've got to then shift them both up, right? I really don't feel good about that. But if I'm gambling and I'm saying and looking at this board and saying, you know what, I see this, I need to be aggressive here in order to have a chance here. And maybe that's what I'm thinking if I'm Fabian. Maybe I am going to put it in 7 instead of St. Pete and just take that chance. And if I have to deal with it, I'll deal with it.
Yeah, I think I'd take that gamble, and if the gamble doesn't pay off, then I think I just shift Galicia north and Sev still goes into Turkey. I think that
it feels so much better if I can actually. So I'm going to go with Moscow and Sev after kind of talking that through. Yeah.
All right. Because if you don't make that gamble, and again, I don't know if Fabian, maybe he's a newer player, maybe he's not, but you're lined up against. I don't
want to fight Germany. If I'm Russia, Germany's not the person I want to fight. No way, right?
Yeah.
Russia's already got everything they're going to get out of Germany in this game, and that's Sweden.
I'm gonna. I mean, I don't agree. I don't think Fleet St. Pete is the right build here. That's not where your builds. That's not where your dots are coming from, right? I mean,
he's just trying to make one of the panel happy by saying that.
Okay.
But, I mean, Fleet South Coast is basically betting your entire game on Baltic being the build that comes off, and that's not the right disband for Germany.
No. All right, Ben, give me the French build.
I think you kind of want to defer. You've got enough to win the North. and I don't think you expect Italy to come after you at this moment. You might waive it, honestly. But if not, I think I mean, because you're being a little declarative by putting something down, and I don't think you need the strength in this moment. But I think if I was actually going to build something, I would probably build a fleet just in case Italy came after me.
Fleet Brest?
Fleet Brest or Fleet Marseille. Yeah, I guess Fleet Brest. You can use it to move it toward North Sea, or you can, use it to cover Mid-Atlantic if Mid-Atlantic goes south.
Yeah, well, we get the Italian army. Turkey builds an army as well. Bulgaria comes off the board for Austria, and Russia does go with the safe fee. And Chris Kelly would have been right with his gamble. Fleet South Coast would have been perfect. Not really, but
I would have actually considered Army Brest as France there. Just use that to convoy into England. Then you've got your free fleets free to defend from Italy if you need to.
Oh, goodness gracious, McCullough. You want to put 2 armies in England?
It's a 1908 game. Yes, I actually do. If this is a 1916 game, absolutely not. But 1908, sure. I probably want the 3 English dots, and I'm hoping that that's enough to win me the game.
No. All right, so here's the fall. Oh, we never played the. Hang on, we never played the video. So let's do the buttons and then do that one.
4 starts off with Peter and Fabian discussing tactics. I think many people who are watching right now might not know Fabian. He has not been playing virtually, but he has a very big reputation, and Peter's actually asking him for tactical advice, which is saying something. On the other hand, Fabian and Ruben don't really have full conversation. Almost cannot discuss anymore in Spring of 4 because emotions have been running high. Fabian said he destroyed the momentum they had, so that is not very good. But Peter and Fabian seem to get along.
I thought it was 03. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
No, we are on 4, I think.
Okay.
Maybe we will see.
All right. In any event, look, I want to take. This is Windmills of Your Mind, Wheels Within Wheels. All right. Nicolas Sauguet, just an example. He goes to Peter in the spring and he says, Peter asks him, "What's bouncing the Western Med?" And he goes, "No, my fleet has other things to do." And Peter goes, "What other things?" And he goes, "I don't want to say, but one thing it's not going to do is go in the Western Med. And you shouldn't go there either. Go to Tunis or go to Ionia." And Peter goes, "Well, I don't want to do that." And maybe Gulf of Leon is what Nicholas says. Maybe you're going to go to Gulf of Leon because we have this army in Venice and we have the fleet in the Tyrrhenian. Those move west, maybe Marseille's vulnerable. Anyways, and I know this is taking a little long. The point is this. What happens is he induces Peter to go to the Ionian, but Nicolas Sauguet, moves Spain south coast, which was the plan all along, to completely defend against Marseille. First thing Peter says after the adjudication, very savvy. He tried to get me to attack Marseille. He pressure against the attack on Rubens to make him in the west continue to be able to expand without pressure and without worry. It's fantastic play by Nicolas Sauguet. And Peter's going east. He's got a Jamal problem because Jamal is going east attacking Russia. Peter wants pressure on Nicola, but he can't do it because he's attacking Ruben right now. He actually thinks what's going to happen, or what he wants to happen, to work with Russia to help against Austria. That can't happen with Germany now moving that way. Everybody's frustrated with everybody else.
Yeah, and Jamal is telling Peter, "Look, if you're coming for Nicola, I will jump on the bandwagon," but he wants to see them move out of Italy first. So Peter doesn't like that. And then also, Jamal is very open to Russia, that he's still coming for Warsaw, that he is moving and attacking him there. He didn't tell him that he would move the armies up, but he said, "Yeah, no, I'm not just going to move back. You're just going to defend that, and I'm going to do my thing." But he's saying, you can have Eddie at the same time. So while he's attacking him on one theater, he's offering, "How about you move army and fleet north, and you help us against England. We will put you into Eddie. That is okay." And as we see, Russia didn't really like that, rather attacked Sweden and took us into Oslo.
So the last thing to say is Jamal is getting frustrated a little bit because he's an alliance player. He is searching for that alliance partner. He's searching for that partner. He's not finding it. What he's finding is sort of strategic relationships, turn by turn, that he has with Nicola. And in the event, Nicola and Peter got to talking about Jamal and what Jamal was doing, and Nicola says in his very French accent, he goes, "I think Jamal is finding out that my name is not Gavin."
Okay.
There we go.
Well, see you for the next one.
Oh, that's priceless. Who called it at the beginning of the game? Jamal's alliance partner needs to build. Right on, right on. I think that they saw that maybe, and I don't. He's newer too, so he was doing the introductions at the beginning of the game, and either word travels fast about him. You're the champ, so you know you got the target on you. But cheers to whoever planted those seeds, whether it be in rounds 1, 2, or 3, or before this.
Things are working out great for Jamal's alliance partner. I don't see the problem here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I said in spring that you don't win your 50-50 tactics against Peter McNamara and Ruben. He made them and he didn't get them. But what Nicola's doing is, instead of taking 50-50s, he's working Peter diplomatically, and he's really getting Peter to do everything he wants him to do. First, he slows Peter down by stopping him moving east when he wanted to. Then he makes Peter move east when he didn't really want to, because he tried to convince Peter to go for Marseille. So Nicola is getting the upper hand in that negotiation between the two pretty consistently right now, and that could well be what ends up deciding this game.
So we're halfway through. We had some predictions at the beginning of the game. Who's modifying them?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to I mean, I don't think Ruben is out of the game, but it's hard for me to stick with Austria from this position. I mean, the easy choice here is obviously Nicolas Ahuguet. I mean, if France in this position right here, man, it's so hard without the board deciding that he shouldn't win. It's so hard to see him not winning this game. I mean, just something has to change, or has to happen in the dynamic of the game where Peter and Jamal are willing to let Russia win, or somebody is willing to let somebody else win in order to stop Nicola. And I don't know that the dynamics of this game, again, we don't know the details, but nothing I'm hearing from the commentary suggests that there's anything like that going on yet. We do still have 4 years. We're only halfway through, so things could change. But man, Nicola has everything going in his direction right now.
Well, I'm just saying that I was rooting for Russia from the beginning, and halfway there, I'm in first, so I'm claiming a victory.
I probably would put Russia as the second most likely right now, with Peter, and maybe Peter is kind of close behind that. But I think Russia just there's so many kinks in the armor, as it were, right?
Yep. And Russia, because they didn't take the gambles on the builds, their growth path is much more limited than it could have been. If you had an army in Sevastopol right now to go for Armenia, you at least wouldn't be worried so much about Ankara. You could do stuff. Russia, they took the more cautious build, and unfortunately, this is the reward they get, is that it's hard for them to take more centers without Peter's help in Austria. And if Peter's helping you in Austria, Peter's helping himself a lot more in Austria.
Yeah, you're almost thinking about, do I work with Ruben here, right, and help him retake some stuff from Peter at this point, because it's less dangerous to you in many ways than letting Peter advance.
Maybe you even go into Germany
in the absence of the really strong France. But I would expect, if I was going to guess here, to see Fabian and Peter just decide to divide up Ruben as quickly as they can and get dealing with other things.
Ben, tell us what happens.
Well, Fabian is fighting Germany and is not concerned with Austria at the moment, because Jamal's very committed east. Jamal's also supporting North Sea into Skagerrak and moving back to Norwegian Sea, while Nicola follows him into North Atlantic and sort of defensively, actually not necessarily defensively, right? Because he rotates his fleet down to Spain and mid-Atlantic, but those can go to North Africa, Western Med, if they want to make a play on Tunis from there. Peter continues the attack into into Austria, gets Bulgaria, and pops Albania.
Goodness gracious, France just walking into the North Sea now is just so bad strategically for Jamal. I'm struggling to see the support into Skag. What does that effectively do? And man, it's just rough.
I mean, far from this being a sort of coordinated let's stop Nicola, this almost to me looks like 3 people on this board have just decided Nicola wins. Because this, I mean, England has done this despite last turn helping Russia, who'd been helping them all game up till then. Germany doing this makes no sense at all.
Man.
And even Russia is like their units are holding. They're not trying to bounce anything. I mean, Peter looks like he's still playing for a win, but almost nobody else does.
Well, Peter very clearly still is, but man, what strange moves. Okay, well let's keep going to see what transpires. But this is tough to understand.
Tactically in the South, what has Peter's moves done for his position here? He gave up a little. Does this tie Austria and Russia together? Is Peter trying to go it alone? What's Peter's tactical / diplomatic situation look like going into this fall, knowing now what the West looks like?
I mean, I don't think he has any choice but to continue pounding on Austria. I mean, he's got nothing else to do, and he's basically going to be probably allowing Turkey to get back their home center right here, which, that's I guess okay if Turkey's going to go attack Russia from this perspective. If Turkey isn't inclined to press on Peter, but I mean, it's really just the West that just has me. I just don't get it.
I mean, Peter's play to win is that he has to convince Russia that Russia still has a play to win. So he has to do whatever he can to help Fabian here. But if Jamal is already choosing Nicola to win, maybe Peter has to just walk into Munich here and hope that works or something.
Yeah, I was wondering about whether that's worth it or not. I don't know that forgoing Trieste, but then again, he could get stood out of Trieste anyway. So maybe that is what you do.
Yeah, Trieste you can take at any point Yeah, I don't know. But if Germany has chosen France to win, it's so hard for anyone else on this board to stop that.
Yeah, and 2 fleets coming around potentially. And there they come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes sense for Nicola to be doing that now. And he attacks Jamal rather than taking the English centers because why not? I guess you can take Jan's last dots and you can't actually take them anytime he wants. But yeah, London's hanging in the breeze. Edinburgh's there. Oof.
He's lucky England doesn't. Well, he's not lucky. England doesn't build. It would have been bad for him if they did, but they didn't. And you probably can go back and get those dots.
Well, it's super interesting that Jamal seems to sort of sniff this out. I mean, the attack on North Sea is not, in line with what he had been doing the previous turns. But man, too little, too late, Jamal. Oof.
It almost looks to me like Jamal's tried to cut some deal with Fabian because Fabian's chosen not to attack Warsaw. He's basically given that to Germany.
Yeah.
Prussia is hard to square with that being arranged, but maybe they're thinking they need extra armies down there to protect Munich from Nicola. But the problem is that, like, Peter has made the play I said that he's tried to keep Fabian with a hope of winning, but Fabian's lost every yes everywhere. Like, he's lost Romania, not got into Budapest, lost Ankara, so even though he got Khan, so Fabian is pulling 2 here. He's lost Warsaw and Rum overall. And Fabian has no good disbands whatsoever because he can't pull the Scandinavian units because England's now a French janissary, and he can't really pull anything else either. No. Moscow, and then you just open yourself up and give up the game. And Peter's running out of people who can think they have a hope of winning. And if nobody thinks they have a hope of winning, they're all more inclined to just say, well, it's over. Good job, Nicola.
Yeah,
and that's what happens on these top boards, right? The narrative starts to write itself and it starts to become an inevitability and a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't think this is self-fulfilling. I think Nicola has just dominated this board, right? But I think the willpower on this board maybe is largely going to be gone, except for maybe Peter, who will fight till the end. But otherwise, this is hard to see. But I guess Peter is going to be building a cup. Well, just one, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ruben's building one. So what does that do for him?
I don't think Ruben's in this game to help Peter that way.
No, you would think not.
And even if Turkey builds, it's not good for Peter, because Peter's path to win really needs the Turkish dots that are never going to come now that France is in Western Med and North Africa.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And
France
and soon to be in Marseille as well.
the look back tiebreaker currently favors France on this one. All right, so as we go to discuss the builds, here let's just do the builds. Oops, wrong button.
Yep.
Ooh, Prussia and Galicia. Well, that might have been he didn't attack Warsaw. That's the.
But that's Russia giving up on the game. They're like their hope of a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to disband at home and keep the forward units.
Army Rome, Ben?
Army Rome. Well, you got to think he's defending Tunis. What's Rome doing? I'm not sure. It's not what I would have built, to be honest. What do you all think?
It's a Army Rome fleet Rome to go up to Tuscany and kind of protect the position while you can still. I mean, I think the point of Army Rome is it allows you to still try to make some gains against Austria while not throwing things away from the French attack. I think it does a better job of that than the fleet does, but it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen the other, probably.
The fleet, you're very committed to France, to fighting France, but somebody's got to be committed to fighting France if they don't want France to win at this point, right? I mean, maybe Russia takes Warsaw back and builds another fleet, but especially if England is now on the attack against Russia, I mean, that's actually a really smart move by Nicola the last time. If he really believes, Jan, that he's going to stick with him, but, those two fleets are more valuable than the one dot he would have picked up.
If Jan doesn't stick with him, what's he going to do?
Right. I mean, if Nicola gets this from north, he's walking into one of Jan's home centers. Yeah.
Jan, you've gone to North Atlantic. I sure do wonder where North Sea's going to go.
I think one thing we don't know is what is the relative placement of people coming into this. And Jan might be saying well, if I get a result in this game, maybe I'm good enough for second or third place. And that, and I know that's the best I'm going to do. So I'm going to try to do that versus if I'm eliminated, I'm probably 6th or 7th or something like that. And that may be a good incentive for Jan at this point to just janissary and say, okay, Nicola, you can win and leave me with 2 dots and I can come in second or third because, at least it gives me a good final position. Again, we don't know any of that. I could be wrong. He could be, 7th going in, but people still have motivations even when they know they can't win.
Well, maybe some of those motivations were heard by our sideline reporters. Let's go back to Ed and Robert and Kate.
So now we are 1905. I double checked. 1905.
You're right.
So Jamal and Jan start off with telling each other in spring they would actually vote for a draw with Nicola on top at the end of the year. They seem to have decided, at least that's what they tell each other, that could be the result. Apart from that, Jamal and Fabian cannot decide who should move back. So each tell the other, look, we want to do something in this game, we need to disentangle. Jamal says you need to move first. Fabian says no, you need to move first, get out of my hair. Can't decide on anything else.
They're all stuck. Jamal is telling Peter's begging Jamal to go west to attack Nicola, and he's like, I need to be able to get dots from Russia. That's the only place I can do it. Peter's like, Jamal, you're asking too much. Jamal's response is, you know how I play. I give a lot of trust. I need to get a lot of trust. If you want me to go west, you're going to have to, help Fabian give me this stuff. And Peter's like, I don't think I can do it. So this struggle of who's going to stop Nicola, they see that it gets worse in the fall, doesn't it?
In spring, at the end, Fabian misses 3 units, writes nothing for Sweden, Norway. Ram is really upset about that. Really, nerves are, getting an issue there. In the fall, Peter's trying to mediate, as we said, in spring already, between Jamal and Fabian. And Jamal asks to be kept in Warsaw for at least one turn so he can put up a defense. Begrudgingly, Fabian eventually agrees. That's like, okay, if you tap North Sea, if you move back, then you can have it for now. Jamal asked for Belgium. It was a deal apparently for quite a while that eventually he would get Belgium from France, but Nicolas upset because he says no, you will get Sweden, you don't need both. Jamal thinks you should get both because he tells him, I'm not keeping Warsaw. At this point, he didn't know yet, but that is a bit of discord there.
So Jamal is trying to get builds, to have options. He's finding resistance everywhere. He's becoming very frustrated. He is trying his best. It's actually quite amazing to see what he's trying to do and as he's scrambling. And he, the other thing is that I can't tell you how much this comment clock is affecting this game. They are adjudicating a long time. There are arguments. There are order writing. Ruben is slow getting the orders in. They have about less than 10 minutes every turn. In fact, we're getting back there because there's only like 5 minutes left as we go in to the next season. Thanks so much.
Yeah, a comment came up, I think maybe even it was in the preliminary game, about adjudications. Those are all on the clock in a central clock. A lot of these boards are on the same time as the final rounds, just because there's a top board. That's not the only game playing in these tournaments. If you're flying 5,000 miles to get there, you're playing 4 games if you want to play 4 games. So they're on the same clock as everyone else, and the bickering about, oh, did that support or did that piece get pushed down? Although in this board, you'll see pieces don't get kind of pushed down. It's kind of fun. We'll get that in a little bit. It's the drain on the frustrations certainly starting to build with only 3 years left. Strategic takeaways, Adam. First thoughts.
Well, I mean, you're hearing about the frustrations, right? And this is getting to the time in the games where people who are not leading but still feel like they have a chance are trying to figure out what do I do here? How do I change a dynamic of a game where the script has already been written? And this is the kind of position that, I mean, it's really hard to be in that position, to be in Jamal's shoes and be saying, I'm viable in this game. I'm not dead here. But what do I need to do to change the narrative of this game? And you're grasping at straws sometimes, it feels like, and you're negotiating with other people who feel the same way, but working with you is not the right narrative that they need. And how do you make that work? And this is one of the real challenges. I mean, it can happen in any diplomacy game, but it is really pervasive on mid-game top boards. It is so hard to figure out how to do that. And I think, Fabian is going through that right now. Ruben is going through that right now. Peter has it all figured out because he's a TI-85. But as for the rest of them, it's a challenging situation.
Who's Ben? If you're Peter in this situation, you're clearly number 2. You need someone to attack Nikolai. How do you twist Jamal? How do you twist Jan? What's the first thing you're going to ask other than other than a beauty contest? I want me, you, who's it going to be? What's the thing you could say to him to make a move?
You got to offer some ray of hope if you can. I'm not sure what's realistic and what's not, but with Jan, I mean, I think even if you're Jamal, I think you're maybe offering Denmark, and you're trying to get a build behind, and you're trying to trick Nikolai into not being in position to be vulnerable to that somehow. But even if it's not real hope, you have to offer some kind of hope. And it's important to understand people's motivations change as the game goes. And it's important to understand what those are changing to, if you can, and to satisfy those motivations. Sometimes they want somebody else dead. They want to finish ahead of somebody else. Or they want to finish on a certain number of dots. And if you can keep track of what people's motivations are, then you can give them hope that they're going to reach that motivation, whatever it is.
This game is reminding me a lot of the VDC top board from January that I played on, when it was Jamal who ran ahead, and I was sort of in the Peter position and trying to juggle other people's demands in the East. And in that game, I couldn't get Peter and Jatson on board to carve up the East in a way that satisfied all of us to have any hope of stopping Jamal in that game. In this game, Jamal went to Peter in spring, was like, you need to help me against Russia. And Peter could never say yes to that, because Peter needs Russia as well. Like that was a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you say yes to that, maybe you get Jamal fighting Nicola, but Jamal doesn't win by himself and you lose Russia. If you say no, you don't get Jamal. It's really hard to square that, and Peter's gonna have a really difficult time convincing people if they're still trying to hope for a win when their wins all come through each other at this point, because Fabian doesn't win unless he takes German centers. Jamal doesn't really win unless he takes Russian centers. And how you can square that as Peter is a really, really difficult thing to do. In the end, in the VDC, it basically came down to no one could come up with an agreement, so Jamal won it. And it really wouldn't surprise me if that's how this game goes, and maybe it draws soon, maybe it goes to time. But either way, I'm just not seeing anything that unlocks this position to give someone else a real hope of winning.
Adam, the one name I didn't hear in all of that is Ruben. If you're Nicola, is your first conversation to Ruben to say, let's nail Peter and then it's done? Or does Ruben say, if that happens, I'm done too?
I mean, I don't think that's how you approach Ruben, but I think that it's very easy to be talking to Ruben and saying we clearly have similar goals right here, right? I mean, you're under attack. I'm helping you because I'm diverting Peter's units, right? So, and it's true, right? You do have similar goals, which unfortunately for Ruben is like, well, we have similar goals. You're twice the size of me, but what am I going to do to that? Like, I need to get Peter off my back.
Unless Ruben has a shot at winning himself, which he can only do by taking centres from Peter, I just don't see a reason for Ruben to do anything other than say, yeah, I'm fine with Nicola winning. Why would Ruben not be fine with Nicola winning this game? And Peter, like, to get Ruben on side and give Ruben so many centres Ruben has a shot of winning, that gives up Peter's own chance of winning. So you're back to Peter being damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. He doesn't have a way to get all of these people to unite in a coalition because their goals all have to overlap with each other to actually have a chance of winning.
All right, Ben, last question before we move on. Who finishes the game with more centers, England or Turkey?
Turkey. I don't think they have a lot of pressure. I think they can take Khan back, and I doubt England is going to be allowed to build again.
You never know. Well, you see, pressure is on. Builds are on. Who knows? All right, Ben, take this one for us.
Sure. So Turkey does take Constantinople back. Russia gets Romania. Peter's positioning himself for an attack in the fall rather than attacking now. Bounce in Tunis. That's where that army was going. Interesting. Gascony goes to Burgundy. Mid-Atlantic moves forward to English Channel. Russia works with Germany to kick France out of the North Sea, but it retreats to London, and Warsaw stays there with just one hitting it for now.
And that's even worse for Russia, because not only do they get into North Sea to help Nicola take a centre, but they lose Norway for their troubles. And sure, they've got to walk into Edinburgh and it's a 1-for-1, but that's just a worse position, and Nicola's building, and they've lost Constantinople because Ruben is playing to help Turkey and punish Peter. That's why he's tapped Bulgaria, and that's helped Russia lose Khan. This is all a bit of a race against time. Peter's doing really well to keep Russia and Germany working together, which can only be being oiled by Peter, and that's why Warsaw hasn't fallen yet, and you see the coordination of North Sea. But it's not enough. You need somebody else on side as well, and he just doesn't have that with England and with Austria being against him.
That one was pretty straightforward. Let's get to the fall. Adam, take this one from me, please. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this is all just great news for Nicola, right? I mean, everybody else is fighting on this board. It doesn't matter that you're back in the North Sea. You've taken London, so you're +1 again. So now you're leading the next closest person by, I think, 2 or maybe 3. You got England just causing havoc in the north against Russia. Russia is attacking Germany now. I mean, this is just a mess. Nobody else is showing any willpower to do anything other than come in second place in this board. And maybe there's an incentive for that, depending on where people are in the standings, and they recognize that and they actually do want to play for second. I don't know. But it's just becoming harder and harder to see any scenario in this game that's not Nicola Sahuge world champion in a matter of a few short years.
Even though Russia and Germany are trying to work together, Denmark holds North Sea when it moves instead of holding Sweden. It's just not, the coordination isn't successful here.
Well, and Russia kicks Germany out of Warsaw, and it makes sense that they do that, but I mean, how is that helping the cause in the long run, right? I don't know.
And that was always Peter's problem. And yeah, like Russia, their hope of winning is even less because Turkey, that little move of Ankh down to Smyrna suggests they're about to put fleet anchor down and force Black Sea. So Turkey is coming after Russia, which is also bad news for Peter. It would be even worse if they were coming after Italy, sort of. But if Russia goes down, then there's just nothing good on this board for anyone that isn't Nikola.
Remember the last game I was saying, the prelim game, I was saying it was like France wasn't doing anything, so they were like not even on the board. It's almost the same. It's like everyone's decided to ignore them and fight amongst themselves. Nikola must be doing an excellent job of, just directing attention elsewhere.
All right, so Fleet Ankh, let's assume Livonia goes, Austria, Galicia goes, and France. Does it even matter at this point what they put down?
Fleet and Brest.
Ooh, Ruhr goes.
Sure.
Interesting.
Just draw.
Yeah.
Please, just make it end.
No. Oh, we got a couple more years of Ed and Robert together. We're not quitting yet. So let's hear what they have to say.
Okay, 1906 is starting to get very warm. Sun is burning down. Very physical game and mentally heated. In spring, Jamal and Fabian seem to finally have a bit of a constructive conversation to stop Nikola to do something together. However, in the secret conversation, Jamal is still telling Nikola, no, I'm absolutely happy for you to win. So we'll have to see how this goes. At least in spring, it sounded very much like those two are finally working together to put in concerted effort against the French top.
Absolutely, and Peter's trying to mediate between the two of them. It's just a difficult position for Jamal. Jamal is complaining about his position and just saying, if I don't have units, I can't do anything. Fabian, of course, wants to play to win. That really is the story in the spring.
And it continues in the fall, because in the fall, Jamal tells Fabian explicitly, if you take Warsaw, I'm going to disband in the West. France's side. That is still happening no matter what, but Fabian knew of that. Jan agrees to go to North, so it seems for a little while that the Eastern powers who are trying to do something with Germany against Nikolai have turned the English janissary. However, Jamal explicitly asked Russia to take Sweden, so they still want to work together, but behind their backs they do their stuff on their own. Fabian goes for Warsaw, and Nicolas, in French, secretly feeds the moves to Jan that are best. He has talked to Russia as well. It seems they made a deal. The deal was that, Russia takes something off of Jamal, and they work together. He says, like, yeah, sure, you can take Eddie. If you go to Norway, England can take 2 centers off of you, even if he goes to St. Pete. But secretly, he's feeding the move of like, okay, support yourself into Sweden. So after all, England is still on France's side and going against Russia.
The key here is, as Peter looks at the center count where it's 8-7, Peter, it's like one of those old 1970s or 80s movies with a computer that's working in overdrive, and finally the smoke comes out of it. Peter's getting frustrated. He says, the only way I can win is to race Nikola for dots. He goes, the problem is with everywhere else happening, I'm not getting those dots. He's concerned that computer is calculating what to do.
And computers don't work well when there's a lot of heat. So I'm not sure if that will affect him, but it is getting darn hot out here. Okay.
Oh, is it?
We're taking this metaphor really far with Peter being a machine.
But it is accurate, and they look like they moved to like the jail area of the complex where they were playing at.
Yeah,
like,
look at the background. They were like the movers in the beginning, and then they were behind the thing, and now there's the fence.
To be able to play diplomacy outside in a championship game, we've done that in Chicago a couple times on patios and things like that. It's realize how hot it gets when you're pacing and walking and sweating. So hopefully Robert and Ed brought their sunscreen. So everything the same kind of that we've been hearing. Obviously, they're hearing the direct words out of it. The French across the table though is good to confirm those orders late at the end. Nothing better for those guys. 1907. Spring 07, McCallus. Why don't you read these for us?
I'm actually surprised we're still playing. All right. So Nicola convoys up to Yorkshire, to go and take Edinburgh while defending Liverpool. Cool. Jamal, that pull in Ruhr was indeed the I've given up move, and now he's going down and attacking the east and is no longer going to fight Nicola. There's a fun brace on St. Petersburg that doesn't really matter. Turkey does take the Black Sea and gets into Armenia as well, as Fabian didn't bounce that, which is brave. So Fabian's probably going to lose Sevastopol pretty soon. Peter, yeah, he's got into Serbia. Woo.
Well, the question here is, does Fabian decide he would rather Peter win than Nicola and try to put Peter into dots? And if that's actually what happens here, I think it's still going to be very difficult. But then we actually have a last 2 years that could be a little bit interesting, right? If Fabian is actively putting Peter into dots, right? Because Peter is not sending more units south. Nicola is not sending more units south, and Peter is now going to be forcing Nicola to be covering some things. So I think, I still think it's far-fetched to think Peter's going to win this game, but it could become a little bit more of a race than we were originally saying.
It would be very unusual to see a WDC decided by a throwing race between two sides of the board.
That would never happen. No,
we haven't seen that for at least 1 year.
and actually, Russia doesn't really even need to throw it. I mean, he can just be supporting Peter into those Austrian dots and Italian dots eventually. Maybe. Well, we only have a year and a half, so I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know if that ends up being enough, though, right? If we're talking,
it's three.
Because we're looking at 10, right, for Italy if they get the Austrian.
Yeah, France can probably get to
Edinburgh, so it probably would end up having to be Romania, and to be a true throw. And then the question becomes: is Jamal annoyed by that or not?
Yep.
And if Turkey builds again, Peter would actually really struggle to even hold Bulgaria. He's already got to defend it.
True.
All right. So as we go into fall 07, here was a little clip of one quick conversation that a couple of the players allowed us to take.
Put yourself in a position. I'm not in an equal position where I can't put myself in an equal position. You tell me my orders. It's not. This is not tactics. No, it is a tactical position here because we're fighting Nicola tactics. Diplomatically put yourself in a not a diplomatic position.
I mean, and that's the perfect shot of what you guys have been talking about all game. Mr. Tactics and Mr. Social right there. It's not a tactics. It's not a tactics. And Peter's laughing, going, "Tell me the orders."
I mean, Jamal is right in that tactics can't win Peter the game. I just don't think diplomacy can win it either.
Well, I mean, and Jamal is going to Bohemia here. What is that doing? Right? I mean, okay.
He's going to Vienna. He wants his shot of Ruben now too.
Yeah, why not? That's fair.
Adam, keep going.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on, right? This is just tactics to some extent at this point, right? Bounce in Trieste, bounce in Tunis. Picardy holds to enable France to cover Marseille, so they can't rebuild there. Bounce in Edinburgh up north while repositioning the other fleets to cover Liverpool. Jamal disbands Livonia so that he can rebuild it. I mean, it's tactics, but it's only got a year to play, and that's not going to be enough time for Peter to take the two remaining Italian centers. Because if we're talking about tactics, I don't think he's in position to do that, even in the best case scenario.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if Peter could walk into Constantinople and Turkey lets him, that's about the only shot he's got left. If Sasha decides to throw to Peter.
Yeah.
Anything else on ball orders? Pretty sure.
I mean, Livonia, yeah, it makes sense. That's probably agreed with all of them so that he can rebuild that in Kiel and at least do something towards Holland. But it's interesting, actually, that Norway tapped North Sea. That does suggest England might be turning against Nicola. That we didn't mention that. that stopped Nicola taking Edinburgh that turn. Maybe they've got Jan on side. Maybe then there's hope.
All right, for that we get the German rebuild. We've got another pull from Austria and assumingly Army Venice, which we do get the Kiel rebuild and Albania off the board. All right, so the tactics of 1907 were not that interesting. Let's see if the sideline can provide some insight.
All right, so 1907, I think the big headline is, what is Jamal doing? We had the story with, like, he's going to be banned from France's side. He now goes to Peter and to Nicola and tells them both, I'm not going to throw, I'm going to help you both do dots with your race. Peter tries to push against it. If you do that, then you pick Nicola to win because he's so far ahead. Jamal says, yeah, doesn't matter. That's what I want to do. France tries to offer Denmark to England. England moves there. Then France can support it. And yeah, Peter and Fabian are mainly kicking themselves for the fact that they are literally, oh, I'm playing so stupidly. Why am I doing this? And that's what all I heard after.
The time pressure is real. This issue with what is Jamal going to do is the entire 1907 year. Jamal goes to Fabian and he goes, this is going to be very special for you, Fabian. You get to be part of the greatest comeback in WDC history. Fabian goes, how am I going to do that? And Jamal goes, well, you're going to give me your dot. And you see, what will happen is I will then get to 9 or 10. You know, this is the state of the game right now. And Jamal is really trying. He's saying to everyone, I'm not going to throw. I'm not going to throw. And Peter's saying, you saying you're not going to throw, but you're not attacking Nicola, is actually throwing in a different sense. And that's what you're doing. And Jamal didn't actually want to hear that. And he's like, convince me how that's not a throw.
Yeah, it sort of continues like that in fall. Peter says, I can't win anymore, but as a matter of principle, I don't want to draw on the four. Jamal and Peter talk. Peter says, like, I'm not going to move to Marseille. He's likely going to cover it. Would you be interested in walking into Burgundy behind and potentially going to Paris? And Jamal says, no, I don't want to throw. And Peter says, like, I'm not asking you to throw. I'm just asking you to take dots for yourself. He said, I will consider it. I'm not going to promise.
But he did it.
He did, but Nicola was savvy and could anyway.
So on the other end of it, in the East, Peter's sort of last gasp strategy, okay, is, okay, fellas, I'm not asking anyone to throw. But what I am saying to you, Fabian, is don't worry about Jamal. Just start helping me. It's Ruben's dots. Okay, that's not a throw. You know, you're not losing centers. Let's do it that way. And of course, the issue has always been Jamal. Notice Jamal disbands Livonia. That opens up Russia. Will Russia start helping Peter, who he's been working with all game, into Ruben's dots? And of course, Ruben aggrieved for many, many years. Will he have the final say?
We shall see.
Well. So you're saying there's a chance. Anyone saying there's a chance?
It's really interesting that Nicola apparently offered support to England, to Denmark, and then didn't give it. And maybe that's cost him, and that's why England then tapped North Sea in full. And maybe that's the first diplomatic misplay we've seen this game from Nicola Sahuday. Because up till now, he's done everything right. But if in the end Peter does tweak it, and it's because England won't help Nicola in the final year, that could be the one mistake that comes back to bite him here.
Adam, on a top board, late in the game, shorter deadlines, could it just have been a mistake? I forgot to do it? Or is there a tactical play when you think you've got the win in hand and I just want to get through these turns?
Well, there's some tactical questions that Nicola now has to address, right? Even to be able to say, okay, I can comfortably end on 10. He's at 9 now. Edinburgh was B10, but in order to do that, he's potentially leaving something in the Low Countries vulnerable. He's potentially got to make a decision about what to do in Burgundy. So this is not a trivial final position for Nicola. Now, will 9 be enough to win? I don't know. Peter is at 8. Can Peter conceivably take one red dot? I think the answer is probably yes. If he has some help from his friends, from his allies, can he conceivably take both red dots? Harder, conceivable, yeah. This will be interesting.
Ben, give me a situation where Nicolas can take Eddie and hold without it. What is there a gamble? Is there a tactical guess that you're looking at here? If you're Nicolas walking back to this final board for one last year, I gotta lock up.
Yeah, I was just kind of think about those tactics. I mean, I think you can defend the mainland here with only the 3 armies, because you can bounce Burgundy if you need to, and then you can retreat. But you got to take. I think you got to take Edinburgh. I think like the things you might lose are all possibilities, but you can be sure to take Edinburgh by supporting North Sea into it. But you know.
The problem if you take Edinburgh and Spring and England comes to Norwegian and Germany comes to North Sea, you can't necessarily hold it.
No, but if you're doing that, you got to move English to North.
English to North, so they can't get both. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
But then you could still lose North Sea, which means that Liverpool and Edinburgh are still. It's going to use up a lot of units, because if North Sea is lost, then Holland is really hard to hold with just the 2 armies there. I think what Nicola has to do is pull Western Med back to Spain, so that or try and bounce Lyon, something like that, which helps you defend Marseille. Because you're not getting Tunis at this point. That has to be entered.
Yep. All right. Let's see it happen in sort of real time. When he holds Western Med, oh man.
Well, that's okay because he ends up in Picardy.
Yeah.
He gets kicked out of Ruhr, so he ends up retreating to Holland. He does the self bounce in Burgundy. Okay, so that's covered. He did exactly what Ben suggested in terms of the North. He supports North Sea into Edinburgh, but England doesn't go to Norwegian. They go to St. Petersburg here. So, okay, so Nikolai is good to end on 10. Now the question is, can Peter conceivably end on 10? Well, he gets support from Jamal into Vienna. He's in Trieste. He's getting further help from the Russians, but the question is now Turkey's in the Ionian Sea. So what is that going to mean in the fall? Well, I mean, he can certainly cover Naples from Tyrrhenian. Well, he can't cover Naples from the Tyrrhenian Sea if he needs to support Tunis. So, boy, Turkey is going to get to be one of the deciders right here. But also a 10-10 split is going to go to Nicola because of their rule about looking back a year, right? So Peter can't win this game on a 10-10 split.
You would need Romania thrown to him, basically.
So I think the reason Western Med held is that late on, Nicola's gotten Taunton to Sasha. That's the only reason Sasha's moved to Ionian. It's been a deliberate play to let Peter into Tunis so that Sasha gets into Ionian behind. Once again, really good diplomatic play by Nicola to make this an unwinnable situation almost for Peter. I mean, he's in Piedmont, which means Peter has to cover Venice as well, which makes it harder to guarantee Budapest.
Yep.
Oof. All right, so we've got two sides.
The convoy of Armenia to Khan is a big irritant for Peter as well.
Yeah. All right. So as it stands now, Nikolai's at 10. Peter is at 9. Peter would need 2 more to win on tiebreaker. There is no winning on tiebreaker, but he would need 2 more to win. We do have 2 sideline reports from this year. We have one in between and then one at the end. So let's.
So, spring, the very last year of this game, Peter's running around trying to find somebody who will help him into dots. Jamal is still willing to help him, but still says like, yeah, I'm doing with this both sides thing. The one thing that I listened in that was a big discussion that was started at the beginning, then postponed to doing in the end again, England and Germany taking North Sea together in order to potentially keep Russia in one of either Liverpool or Edinburgh. It was discussed back and forth. Initially, nobody wanted to go. Peter tried to convince people to do that. Fabian tried to convince people to do that. Nobody wanted to go. Initially, something else happened. I think Jamal wrote the order, but England decided to do differently. That was sort of the effort to keep something up there. Apart from that, what did you hear?
Mad scramble for dots. Peter's trying to do everything he can. Jamal did tell Russia that he was going to North Sea. in hopes that Denmark wouldn't be taken, but it got taken. Two things. One, Nicola and Peter are lobbying Jamal back and forth. Jamal says, I'm taking the position that I will help make this as even as I can. I'm not throwing. And Nicola says, well, I'm ahead. And does that mean that you're going to help Peter? And he's like, yes, I'm going to help Peter, but just for one dot. Peter's got to go get the other two on his own. I'm not throwing. And Nicola hears this, and Nicola's like, no, that's actually taking a side. You're taking a side. And Jamal says, no, I'm not taking a side because it's even, and you have the tie break. That's crazy. But the real conversation here of note, was Nicola, first time talks to Turkey. Okay, and they're speaking in French. I don't speak French, but I could hear cut Ionian. Okay, I understood cut Ionian. Talking about the Aegean, go to the Ionian. Guess what? It moved to the Ionian just like Nicola wanted. Nicola lured Peter in because of those orders into Tunis with the Turkish fleet there to try and snag Tunis there in the end, or to have Turkey take a dot off of Italy at the end. Peter saw that move during adjudication and he goes, I should have moved to Tunis with Trevinian. So these are the things that are happening on this board. It is a scramble. Will Peter win? Will Nicola win? It's looking very close.
Absolutely. Have fun with the last turn. Sideline, finding out.
We should have told Ed how to say, how do you say "comment dit-on" to learn his French, but cut Ionian. Good job, Ed.
That was it. Yeah, that negotiation between Nicola and Sasha may well have just won Nicola this game. And it's interesting that England, the previous year, they seemed sort of like they were turning back against Nicola, but those moves, they're not. They're happy with Nicola winning.
So the better part is we've got a second sideline right in a row because we want to see the drama unfold as the orders are read out.
All right, the final turn of the 2024 World Diplomacy Championships. German orders. Ruud Kiel. Denmark to Sweden. Munich supports Nicola. Bohemia supports Peter. Black Sea supports Budapest to Romania. Ionian Sea to Naples. Con to Smyrna. Vienna to Galicia. Budapest supports Vienna to Galicia.
But Vienna is not an Austrian, right? They're not here. So,
Sorry, Budapest to Romania. Apologies. I have no flair for the moment. Still have some flair. Serbia to Sevastopol to the Black Sea. Romania to Bulgaria. Clyde to Liverpool. Warsaw to Galicia. Moscow to Ukraine. Livonia to St. Petersburg.
which coast?
Ukraine. North Africa support Western Med Tunis. Western Med to Tunis. Piedmont to Venice. Belgium supports Holland. Holland supports Denmark to Kiel. Vienna supports Trieste to Budapest. Trieste to Budapest. Serbia supports Bulgaria to Romania. Bulgaria to Romania. Tyrrhenian Sea to Tunis. Tyrolia to Venice. So Tyrrhenian Sea supports Tunis. Tyrolia to Venice. Tunis supports Western Med. Aegean Sea to Smyrna. Think that is it?
So what's happening in Romania?
Romania's off.
Are there English orders?
Yes, please.
I don't make much of a difference.
I can't find them.
You get a shit. You get Budapest.
Jan, where's all your orders?
I don't know. But they are in somewhere. Well, I'm moving to St. Petersburg and Denmark.
Okay, sorry, St. Petersburg and Denmark. So Norway to St. Petersburg, Sweden to Denmark.
Donc le russe doit Russian must be from Romania.
Romania, yeah.
Romania.
Last turn, fifth. Center count, Austria, 0. Germany is 1, 2, 3, 4. England is 2. Russia is 1, 2, 3, 4. Turkey is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. France is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that right? Yeah. France is 10. And Italy is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go. All right, that's it, everybody. Congratulations, Nicola.
Shall I feel the same, Tito? Like you can. For me, it was a bit of pressure on the you were focused on me all game.
Don't regret that.
Oh, you have to listen now.
Okay, good.
Because, I mean,
I only saw that move set late. Yeah. I was sat over there, Captain got to figure out how many help you. I don't even know what.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter. It started to happen in Nicola missed climbing that. Originally we had him taking control.
I was convinced that you could get Russian out.
But I get the Austrian retreat is the top, yeah.
No,
Right,
but,
so that was
but it's a diplomatic thing. It's to refuse not to retreat it.
Austria chose to. I mean, I don't think we would choose to not take the dot.
Congrats to Nicola. What a well played game.
Amazing. What a finish.
As McAllis said just before, I think the first of the two videos. Oops, I'm doing it right there. That's snag. That was it.
No, Peter's looking at this and saying, I lost this on a coin flip. Had I gone to Khan instead of Smyrna, I would be world champion right now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, Turkey and Sasha and Ruben didn't make the optimal moves to stop Peter by having Blatzy go to Bulgaria there, which would have been the move that Peter couldn't really do anything about. They actually left it up to a guess, and the guess didn't come off for Peter.
But this Sevastopol holds Romania even, right? I mean, it protects Romania in this situation.
Well, Peter had to take Romania to win, though. He had to take Rum and Bud and Vienna to make up for losing Naples and get something else out of Turkey.
Yeah, it's not clear that Fabian was really incentivized to protect against Peter here, right? Maybe he didn't. Maybe he doesn't care, but Turkey certainly can make this a lack of a guess by either going to Bulgaria or by shifting Black down into Khan here, right? So Peter's got to be looking at this and really, I mean, he's going to lose sleep over this for a long time. But he played a fantastic game. Nicola played I mean, everybody on this board really played their heart out, as you would expect from a top board at a World Dip Con. Kudos to Nicola, two-time world champion. One of the top players in the world, no question, really. He had nothing to prove going into this game, but he, proved it many-fold over once again. What a great player he is.
Such a great player, and it's funny. I've heard him say that he's a better player now than he was when he won his championship. So now it's paid off for him again. All that improvement over the years.
Yeah, and 50-50, does he really lose sleep over? Because if it's 50-50, there is no odds one better than the other.
There is when you Peter McNamara. But yeah, Nicola played this absolutely brilliantly, and he got the little guys to help him when he needed them to. He had England on side from about 1905, which decided the North for him, and he got Sasha on side at the end, which decided the South for him. Peter, he did really, really well to make it as close as he did, but he could only do it. He in the end only got Germany and Russia to help him. He took Ruben's dots and got there in the end, but the problem was that he had to take those dots because Ruben was helping Nicola up to the end. That meant he couldn't take Turkish dots, and Turkey decided it in Nicola's favor. Nicola won this. It's a game of diplomacy, and he won it diplomatically.
Yeah. And so to Peter's defense, I think Peter, in all of these championship games we've seen, he's made these late runs. He against Brandon, when Brandon, I think, either won by one or got him on the tiebreaker. Peter made the push at the end, and Brandon didn't win on a guess, made the correct tactical move. But if he made the wrong one, Peter slips in there. Peter's the same way. If he wins this guess, he's in there. And Ruben, I don't think Ruben was helping Nicola. I think Ruben was just trying to defend himself. So it wasn't more of a I'm throwing to Nicola. Ruben felt out there. And one thing is Peter pushed Sasha back in this game. Turkey was down to 1, and Peter thought he gave him the build to get to 2 and expanded the fleets, even though they were supposed to go at Russia. They snuck out. So a couple of little things that came back to get them.
It is a great effort by Peter. I mean, we thought that the game could reasonably draw a couple of years ago, and he fought his way right back into the game.
Yeah. So let's hear from Peter. We got a quick interview with Peter here.
I might. A rare emotion for me is empathy. I've never second place at WDC, but I've gotten my fair share. My God, that was close. You never gave up. You should be really proud of your play.
I need a drink.
What was the turn? What was the issue in the game? You were racing. You knew it was a race. You didn't want to go.
The issue was that Germany and Russia just couldn't. They had their armies in pieces in the wrong places, and that let Nicola get too big. I'm actually surprised that Nicola only got 10.
You were saying earlier he had 13.
I had him at 13 or so.
Well, Peter, your time is coming. It's coming.
I'll be like Toby. It'll take 30 years.
All right. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.
So Nicola at 13, is that a fair assessment, Michaelis?
It was doable if he pushed his fleets more aggressively in the north. He probably would have had to take a risk or two doing it. Instead, he focused on controlling Peter more, and in the end, it got him over the line. So, yeah, maybe he could have got them by taking more of a risk. If England goes for St. Pete and you get Norway behind, if you focus those units that were down in Western Meds on just defending Spain and Marseille, you probably could have gone into Germany and got a dot or two as well.
Yeah. All right. What we all wait for is the championship interview. We have Ed sitting down with our winner. Let's take it away.
Former world champion Yeah, that was a hell of a flying.
Yeah.
So many good teachers. I want to talk about. Okay, I don't want to talk about too much. Starting that. First, let's talk about data on the show. I noticed you were talking around a lot of people. Not sure. Whereas others were spending a lot of time in everybody else. Is that true? Why? I don't
We are going to do some editing here to see if we can get some better audio on it. I am not an Apple person, and Ed is an iPhone user, and I tried my best converting them to a format that our broadcasting software can use, and it did not.
I'm sure David Hood will be happy to get the scoop for the next deadline. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that, Kevin. I think we've got a lot of insights here, so I think this has been great. The sideline reporting, as always, is amazing. I honestly had no idea we were getting live sideline. That was such a treat. As a commentator, it is so helpful and so insightful to hear that as we're trying to make sense of what's going on in the game. So really, Ed and Robert, amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. Those two are both great. Great at that. It's funny. I didn't realize until the end that they're using that giant push board. I see why it was taking a long time to do the adjudications. Like, that's a really cool board, but on a central clock, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, Tom Haber.
I was enjoying how much Chris Brown was having to work to try and put the units across on that board. That was like a full-on workout in the blaring sun in the middle of the day in Italy. That Chris must have been as exhausted as some of the players if he was doing that for the whole game.
That is, hey, DBN's best. I seriously gotta thank. To tell you, that's Tom Haver's board. Tom brings that around to a lot of his tournaments. They do a lot of small scale events. A good partnership with Renegade. So for anyone who has not purchased the newest version, Renegade Games, it does that. It's a fun board to see. I've never seen it in person yet, but I do hope to catch it soon. So thanks to Tom, thanks to Gameday for hosting. It looked like they had a great weekend there. From all of the unpublished reports that we received back via text and everyone had a fantastic time. The celebrations, as we were coordinating some of these videos tonight, Robert was out with one group of participants. Ed was out with another group. So just like all of the tournaments that I've been to, the games are competitive, but the social hour is just as good afterwards. So will there be a big board in San Francisco? I don't know. I don't know if Adam has room for it.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see the layout. I don't know if we're gonna do that. We'll see if we have room in the layout. But there will definitely be some big boards next year, and with this year in the wraps, I have little doubt that Nicola will be there to defend his crown. So come play and come play against Nicola next year. I'm already holding him to that, even though we haven't talked since this happened. But he'll be there, I'm sure, to defend his title, along with, I'm sure, many of the other folks you just saw. I certainly hope we'll be there for World DipCon next year in San Francisco. But congratulations to the organizers at Milan. It looks like it was a great event. And clearly had a amazing board capping the event.
This is a nice wrap up of the pandemic era, because these events usually get voted on a couple of years in advance. This one was done via WhatsApp because we didn't have a coordinated in-person hobby in 21, 22. So we are past the virtual era. The San Francisco is voted on, and Greece will be 2026. So we will get there when we get there. Thanks to the hosts. Thanks to, again, Kate and Ed and Robert for all the insight. Fantastic work. Ben, last comments of this top board.
It's a great board. Looks like a great tournament. Love playing with Nicola. He always gets the better of me, and it makes me feel a little bit better that he got the best of everyone this time.
Adam.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see some new faces on that board along with some of the old hands. And I think, they showed themselves well, right? I mean, Sasha in Turkey, we wrote him off for dead and, had a huge impact in the end of the game. And really, on any board, sticking it through to the end, that's what makes great players. And, looking forward to seeing those folks again.
Yeah, Carlos.
Yeah, we saw an absolutely brilliant display from Nicola. There was great play from everyone on that board, but it was Nicola who got the upper hand in almost every single one-on-one negotiation. He slowed Peter down when he needed to earlier in the game. He got Sasha on board when he needed to. He got Jan on board when he needed to. He got Jamal to do whatever it was when Jamal went east and then sort of went down to Austria and back up, and that meant that Jamal didn't have the Russian dots in pocket when Nicola came for him. And Peter made some great plays. Other people on that board made some great plays, but Nicola was consistent throughout. And in the end, he got the deserved reward. And yeah, congrats to Nicola and congrats to Davide for running a fantastic event in Italy.
Yeah. One final salute to Peter. We've got a drink for you here. So congrats on another well-played game. I can't remember a meaningful top board without him. He's played, I know, like I said, he's won in Italy, never the WDC, but the way he's playing, I would not want to face up against him on a top board anytime soon. And of course, no effing way that Nicolas Sahuguet won another one. So cheers, almost 20 years later after the first one, second WDC and a virtual title in the VDC last year. So can play both ways. My thanks to you guys for joining. This was an impromptu broadcast. We did not have this on the calendar, but the fates collided and we were able to work it. So thank you all for joining on short notice. We've got another one next week, VDL. Let's get the little thing for anyone who's watching here. In the VWDC server, 3 games, European, Australian, and North American times. I think there's 2 times that fit each of the areas of play, which is fantastic. 7-hour games, 6.5-hour games. I think usually get through about
6.5 hour time limit. No years can start after that. So usually games go to sort of 1910, maybe 1 or 2 years either way, depending how quickly retreats and stuff are all processed. Looks like there's a lot of sign-ups for next week as well.
Oh, good. I think it's been a longer break in between the games, and usually sometimes a lull. But I think with 2 big events that we've had recently, we'll have that. Next North American tournament is Armada in Denver in mid-July. Then we'll have Montana in August. The dates for WDC next year, April 4th through 6th. It's, I think, the weekend before the religious holidays, 1 or 2 weekends before the holidays. So a good travel time. Get your plans booked. We'll have website and links and all that, and that is in the server if you're on Discord. And we will have the website links on the DiploBN webpage when we get there. So again, my thanks to you guys. This was fun. Great analysis. I don't want to say the sideline reporting is getting a little lame because we were ahead of them on most of the comments. But we certainly thank Robert and Ed and Kate for the great video. And until next week, we will see you then.